Chapter 2279. It had only been 100 years, but Lin Tian had already reached the reaching heaven realm and had gone far in the reaching heaven realm. This shocked Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor. Lin Tian had now completely surpassed them. Seniors, you flatter me. I was just lucky these years and obtained a lot of opportunities. Lin Tian Dao, although his strength had far surpassed Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor, was very humble and kept a low profile in front of the two. He would not forget that when his reincarnation constitution was exposed in the nihility world and attracted many experts to fight for it, these two had come to help him regardless of the danger. Don't be humble. Luck is also a kind of strength, Xian Huang said. Lin Tian smiled and chatted with Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor. At the same time, Bai Ziki and the others were also there. He told them about the Xianhuan universe and the celestial court. Can you really control the order? Wishing Crocodile's eyes lit up. I can't say that I can definitely comprehend and control it, but it's countless times easier than usual, Lin Tian said. This is also a great thing. The five elements crocodile clicked its tongue and rubbed its palms together. It had a restless appearance. Order was an extremely powerful force. Once it could be controlled, one's combat strength would undergo an earth-shattering change. At the same time, the group was also surprised by the existence of such a large area of the universe and the true strength of the celestial court. They never thought that 7 of the 9 universes that existed in this world had already been destroyed by the celestial court. The other 2 universes, the Hongming universe where they were, was still intact, while the other one, the Xianhuan universe, was also in the process of destruction. Of course, relatively speaking, Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor were not so surprised. Both of them knew about the 9 universes and knew a little about the strength of the celestial court. After all, both of them had been in the reaching heaven realm for a long time. In this realm, they naturally knew a lot of things. The final battlefield will be in the Hongming universe where we are. Before that, we have to do our best to improve our strength. Lin Tian now. On this day, all his old friends and relatives gathered. He took care of some matters in the immortal court, and then tore open a universe portal in the depths of the immortal court in the immortal domain. He led a group of people out of the primordial universe and stepped into the universe tunnel that led to the Xianhuan universe. Not long after, they stepped out of the universe tunnel and landed on solid ground again. They were now in a great world. As far as the eye could see, there were many mountain ranges in this world, and the spiritual qi was very dense. Ah! Screams came from the front, and the air was filled with the thick smell of blood. In a mountain range not far away, dozens of celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the celestial court were killing hundreds of Xianhuan cultivators there. In terms of the number of practitioners, there was a huge gap between the two sides. However, the dozens of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals of the celestial court all had tyrannical cultivation bases, which were much higher than those of the hundreds of practitioners from the black-yellow universe. The hundreds of practitioners from the black-yellow universe were killed one after another, and blood splashed from time to time. This, Wishing Crocodile and the others looked at this scene. Although they had learned from Lin Tian that the celestial court was going to destroy the Xianhuan universe, they could not help but be moved at this time. Because in this place, they could not only see the celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the celestial court killing the practitioners of the Xianhuan universe in the mountain range ahead, but they could also feel it from farther away. They could feel that the whole world was in a state of slaughter at this moment. Not far away, in the mountain range, hundreds of practitioners from the Xianhuan universe were killed one by one. Soon they were all wiped out by the dozens of celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the celestial court. The ground was dyed red with blood. Ha! There are still people there. Hey! Kill them! The dozens of celestial soldiers and celestial generals were all at the sage realm. At this time, they saw Lin Tian and the others, and with a cold and cruel look on their faces, they directly attacked. Lin Tian glanced at the dozens of people, and an invisible aura spread out, directly shaking the group of people to death. When the universe is destroyed to about 70%, heaven and earth will tremble. At that time, it will be the best time to comprehend the order. Now, there is still a long time before the destruction of the Xianhuan universe is about 70%. Let's go to various worlds and rob the jade bottle that the celestial court uses to collect the essence of life. It will be very useful to cultivate with the essence of life," he said. Their group included him, Ruoxian, Wuyi, Jiyu, Sushu, Shuiyi, Baiqiu, Yenye, Linxi, Violet Fairy, Ziyu, AI, Tu Xian Xian, Yitong, Snowwolf, Little Taichu, Wishing Crocodile, White Tiger, Baiziki, Yang Qi, Fanning Xiong, Ling Yun, Black Dragon, Xin Qi, Mu Xin Shu, Xian Wang, and the Crocodile Ancestor. There were a total of 27 people. Among them, he, Wu Yi, Su Shu, Xin Qi, Mu Xin Shu, Xian Wang, and the Crocodile Ancestor were all in the Heavenly Ascension realm. For the time being, they didn't have much need for the essence of life. As for the others, their cultivation bases were between the Saint Ruler and the Void Sky realm. The essence of life was very useful to them. It could help them improve their cultivation bases very quickly. Immediately, he led the group into the central region of this world. He directly killed all the celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the celestial court, and took the jade bottle that was placed here to collect the essence of life. This is the jade bottle that the celestial court uses to collect the essence of life? The essence of life inside is simply. Ling Yun's eyes widened. He was now at the peak of the Saint Ruler realm. Seeing the essence of life inside the jade bottle that Lin Tian took, he couldn't help but be shocked. For a moment, his eyes lit up. He felt that the essence of life inside the jade bottle could directly raise his cultivation by several small levels. Beside him, Black Dragon, Fanning Xiong, and the others were also moved. It's roughly the essence of life condensed after 50% of the creatures in this world died. Lin Tian now. Saying this, his voice was a little low. This essence of life was collected by the celestial court from killing countless creatures in this universe. It was formed from endless blood and life. Using this essence of life to cultivate wasn't a good thing. His mood was somewhat heavy. However, although his mood was heavy, he wasn't a hypocritical person. If they didn't use this essence of life, they would let the celestial court use it. This would allow the celestial court to continue to grow stronger. In the future, more people would suffer. Therefore, instead of giving this essence of life to the celestial court to use, it would allow the celestial court to become stronger and harm more creatures. Naturally, it would be better for them to take this essence of life and use it. He paused and said, "Go to a world at the level of the ultimate world." The ultimate world was at the level of the void realm. In that kind of world, the celestial court used the jade bottle to collect a lot of essence of life. Most of the true experts of the celestial court were also in that kind of world. They could go to that kind of world to snatch more essence of life, and they could also kill more brutal cultivators of the celestial court. At that moment, he led the group out of this world. After that, they entered many ultimate worlds and killed one expert of the celestial court after another. They snatched one jade bottle after another that was filled with thick essence of life. Just like that, 10 years passed in the blink of an eye. Boom! 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 Chapter 2280. A powerful aura surged, causing the sky to tremble slightly. I broke through! I broke through! I'm also in the heavenly arrival realm! The white tiger let out a howl with unconcealable excitement. In the past 10 years, under Lin Tian's leadership, Jiyu, Little Taichu, White Tiger, Baiziki, Fanning Xiong, and the others cultivated with the life essence snatched from the celestial court. Today, they broke through their bottlenecks again. Among them, Little Taichu and White Tiger were originally in the virtual sky realm, but today, they broke through to the heavenly arrival realm at the same time. Ruoxian's cultivation was at the end of the virtual sky realm from the beginning, but she reached the heavenly arrival realm 9 years ago. Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shuiyi, Violet Fairy, Baiziki, and the others all reached the peak of the virtual sky realm. In the past 10 years, the group gained extraordinary benefits. Lin Tianwei smiled. In the past 10 years, his cultivation didn't improve, but his essence, energy, and spirit became more condensed, and his battle prowess became much stronger. Moreover, he continued to comprehend his nameless Tao, and his understanding became more and more thorough. He felt that it wouldn't take much time for him to truly comprehend what kind of Tao it was. Once he comprehended the essence of that nameless Tao, his battle prowess would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. At this time, he looked at Jiyu and the others. In the past 10 years, their cultivation improved greatly again and again. Now, they were only a sliver away from stepping into the heavenly arrival realm. This naturally made him happy. Let's go snatch some more life essence, and then we can. He looked at Jiyu and the others and said, but suddenly, his words stopped, and he looked outside this great world. Father, what's wrong? Ruoxian asked curiously when she saw his strange behavior. At the same time, the others also looked at him. I feel a familiar aura. Lin Tian now. Looking outside this great world, bits of light intertwined in his eyes as he felt the aura of the Sword Soul. Although it was only for a moment, he did feel it. Moreover, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness had trembled slightly just now. In a location not far from this extremely large world, there was a fragment of the Sword Soul. What familiar aura? Shuiyi asked. After so many years, Shuiyi had reached the end of the void sky, and the heavenly demon physique had long reached the major completion. Even though it looked very weak on the surface, its actual battle prowess was extremely frightening. It could summon the endless battle souls that floated between heaven and earth to do battle. The aura of that sword. Lin Tian now. As soon as these words were spoken, the expression of everyone present changed. They all knew that Lin Tian was referring to the 7-colored divine sword. You sensed a new sword soul fragment? Whooshing Crocodile asked. Because of the crocodile ancestor's hellish training, its 5 elements bloodline had been completely activated. Its scales naturally intertwined with 5 colors, and naturally it exuded a very strong 5 elements aura. It was like a 5 elements saint spirit. That should be right. Lin Tian nodded. His feeling couldn't be wrong. Immediately he led the group of people out of this extremely large world. Following the previous feeling, they passed through the gap between the worlds and headed for the extreme distance. There were dozens of people in their group, and the weakest cultivation was at the end of the void sky. Naturally, their speed was very fast. After a few hours, a very magnificent large world appeared in front of them. It was thousands of times more astonishing than the extremely large world like the void sky realm. It's inside, he said. His current cultivation was very strong. Although it was only a momentary feeling, that feeling was firmly remembered by him. He remembered the coordinates of the source of the aura. Those coordinates were in this magnificent world. Immediately, he didn't stop. Leading the group of people, he directly tore open the world barrier and stepped into this world. In the blink of an eye, they stepped into this world and landed on solid ground. Then, in an instant, dozens of people were moved. Even Wu Yi's eyes were slightly moved. As far as the eye could see, this world was littered with corpses and blood. Broken immortal mountains could be seen, sunken lands could be seen, broken rivers could be seen, and the stench of blood in the air was pungent to the extreme. It was a scene of purgatory. Damn it! How cruel! Whooshing Crocodile couldn't help but gnash his teeth. The others also had solemn expressions. Everyone could imagine that such a scene was done by the celestial court. All these years, they had already seen the scene of the celestial heavens massacring thousands of creatures in this universe many times, but this was the first time they had seen such a hellish scene. What entered their eyes was corpses and blood everywhere. It was too cruel. Lin Tian's expression was very heavy, and there was coldness in his eyes. This world had nothing to do with him, and the creatures in this world had nothing to do with him. However, at this moment, seeing the mountains and rivers in this world being destroyed, seeing the corpses and blood everywhere, and smelling the pungent smell of blood in the air, he couldn't help but feel a little suffocated in his heart. It was also at this moment that there was a loud boom. In the southwest region of this world, a 7-colored pillar of light suddenly shot up. It was bright and blazing, dyeing the sky there with a layer of seven-colored light. Suddenly, the group of people was moved. Although they had already heard from Lin Tian that there was a fragment of the sword soul of the rainbow divine sword in this place, they couldn't help but be shocked when they saw the same beam of light and aura as the rainbow divine sword rushing out at this time. "Let's go!" Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with a bright light. He took a deep breath and calmed his slightly suffocated heart. He called out to the group of people and directly headed towards the direction where the seven-colored pillar of light shot up. Their current speed was very fast. Along the way, they tore through the void several times and arrived at the southwest region of this world in just a dozen breaths. As far as the eye could see, there was a scarlet mountain range in front of them. The seven-colored pillar of light shot up from the center of the mountain range. A dozen figures were gathered here, jointly casting a technique to extract the object emitting the seven-colored divine light from the ground. These several dozen people were surrounded by a faint blood-red light. The aura they emitted was very similar, and their essence, energy, and soul were all very astonishing. "They are all comparable to the 48 winged powerhouses of the Heaven Protector clan." White Tiger was moved. Lin Tian naturally noticed the strength of these people, but he didn't care. After arriving here, he directly walked towards the center of the mountain range. At the center of the mountain range, the object emitting the seven-colored divine light was definitely a fragment of the sword soul. He had to obtain it. And with his current strength, he didn't care much about cultivators comparable to the 48 winged powerhouses of the Heaven Protector clan. There are still humans in this world? They should have been completely erased by our orders. Did those battle generals not completely erase this world? The dozen people naturally discovered Lin Tianyi and the others. Chapter 2281. Lin Tian walked toward the dozen or so people. When he heard two of them speak, his eyes narrowed slightly, and he could not help but stop. It turned out that all the creatures in this world were killed by these people who ordered others to kill them. In that case, did they also belong to the Celestial Court? At the same time, what moved him even more was that the leader of the dozen or so people mentioned the three words: Transformation Void Realm. There was no such realm before the Reaching Heaven realm, so there was no doubt that this was the realm after the Reaching Heaven realm. Did these people know the division of realms after the Reaching Heaven realm? At the same time, behind him, Ruoxian Jiyu, Baiqiu Yanyer, and the others also thought of the same thing at this time, and they could not help but be moved. "Who are you?" Lin Tian asked. He guessed that these people belonged to the Celestial Court, but they definitely did not look like ordinary Celestial Court practitioners. From the eyes of these people, he could feel a sense of pride, a kind of pride that came from the bones. This kind of pride was a bit thicker than those of the Heaven Protectors he had seen before. "You're not weak. You're barely qualified to know who we are." The leader of the dozen or so people spoke. He was a middle-aged man in a blue robe, and his eyes were cold and arrogant. "However, a dead man doesn't need to know." As he spoke, the man moved. The blood light intertwined and turned into a huge blood-red handprint, majestically grabbing at Lin Tian, Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others, and also enveloped them. Next to this man, the other dozen or so people glanced indifferently at Lin Tian and the others, and then returned their attention to the ground, continuing to cast spells to obtain the sword soul fragments that were emitting seven-colored divine light from the ground, as if Lin Tian and the others were just corpses. Boom! The blue-robed middle-aged man's blood-red handprint pressed down in front of Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. This blood-red palm print was very shocking. The blood-red light carried a terrifying corrosive power that seemed to be able to obliterate everything. Even the Heaven Ascension Realm Mysterious Yellow and the Crocodile Ancestor couldn't help but change their expressions. They clearly felt the threat of death. Lin Tian's eyes were indifferent. He casually raised his hand and grabbed the blood-red handprint. Then, with a poof, it shattered into pieces. Suddenly, Xian Huang, Crocodile Ancestor, and Bai Ziki couldn't help but be moved. They could all feel how terrifying that blood-red handprint was. Just the aftermath alone was enough to make them feel the threat of death. However, it was easily shattered by Lin Tian. I wonder how strong this brat's combat strength is now, Whooshing Crocodile gasped. At the same time, on the opposite side, the face of the man who attacked changed slightly. Next to him, the other dozen or so people were also moved, and their eyes fell on Lin Tian again. They felt that Lin Tian's cultivation was at the same level as theirs. However, their bloodline was very amazing. In the case of being at the same level as them, ordinary people would never be able to withstand their attack. But now, one of them used a magical power, but it was defeated by Lin Tian in an instant. The blue-robed middle-aged man looked at Lin Tian, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. I underestimated. Swoosh! The sound of breaking air rang out, interrupting the man's words. Lin Tian stepped forward and directly appeared in front of the man. The blue-robed middle-aged man was shocked. You bang! Lin Tian raised his hand and directly punched the man's abdomen, causing the man to immediately cough up a large mouthful of blood and couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. You're courting death! Next to him, the other dozen or so people looked shocked and cold. They immediately attacked, and each of them interweaved with an extremely terrifying pressure. At the same time, they released a murderous light and suppressed Lin Tian. When these people attacked together, the aura was so shocking that the entire space trembled. Lin Tian could clearly feel the power of these people. When they attacked together at this time, even he felt some pressure. He could feel that their bloodline aura was very strong and was definitely not weaker than that of ordinary monarch body bloodlines. Buzz! Facing the attacks of these people, he directly propped up the perfect world and the reincarnation diagram of the monarch's territory to display 90% of his combat power. The perfect world was mixed with a vast primitive aura, and the reincarnation domain was intertwined with a sacred and oppressive aura. The two combined and immediately shattered the murderous light that was suppressing the dozen or so people. Then, the dozen or so people were sent flying at the same time, and a large amount of blood splattered in the void. After that, he didn't chase after the dozen or so people for the time being. Instead, he directly suppressed the blue-robed middle-aged man in front of him with the reincarnation diagram of the monarch's territory and the perfect world. His divine sense of origin directly probed into the man's sea of consciousness to search for what he wanted to know. His divine sense of origin swam quickly in the man's sea of consciousness, searching for information one after another. Get out! The space trembled and the blue-robed middle-aged man roared. A circle of powerful saint energy surged and shook Lin Tian's divine sense out of the sea of consciousness. Then, he broke free from the suppression of the perfect world and the reincarnation diagram. That made Lin Tian's expression change. With his current cultivation level, he had already displayed 90% of his strength by suppressing this person with the perfect world and the reincarnation diagram. However, this person was actually able to shake his divine sense out of the sea of consciousness and break free from the double suppression of the perfect world and the reincarnation diagram. That was very shocking. However, he soon regained his composure. Although his divine sense was shaken out, he had already found out what he wanted to know from the other party's sea of consciousness. These dozen or so people indeed belonged to the celestial court and had extremely high statuses. Moreover, this person did know the division of realms after reaching the heavenly ascension realm. He had also found out the division of realms. Impudent thing! The blue-robed middle-aged man broke free and stared at Lin Tian with eyes full of anger and murderous intent. He had actually been suppressed by a human at the same level as him for a period of time, and this human had even invaded his sea of consciousness. This made him furious, and he felt that he had suffered a great humiliation. I'll make you wish you were dead! His voice was cold and carried a great murderous intent. Outside this person's body, a monstrous blood-red light suddenly spread out. It was like a murderous aura, but it was not a simple murderous aura. It was mixed with a power that seemed to be able to erode everything. In the next moment, it evolved into a blood-red beast. The beast was more than 100 feet tall, and was completely condensed from the energy of the blood-red light. It had 3 eyes and a ferocious face. As soon as it was condensed, It let out a roar that shook the sky and directly pounced on Lin Tian. Obviously, this was a very frightening magical power. Wherever it passed, the void was directly annihilated, and the ground was crushed and sunk by several feet. This scene was extremely terrifying. In this regard, Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. His action was very simple. He directly blasted out a reincarnation fist. Chapter 2282. Blood splattered in the air, and the blue-robed middle-aged man was flung hundreds of feet away. However, the opponent was very strong. He stabilized himself in an instant, and his pierced chest recovered in the blink of an eye. Human! Staring at Lin Tian, the man's eyes were even colder, and his killing intent was surging. At the same time, swoosh 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 sounds were heard. The other 13 people who had been sent flying by Lin Tian had all rushed back. These 13 people, like the blue-robed middle-aged man, all had bone-piercing killing intent in their eyes at this time. They had been injured by a human in an instant. Lowly race! How dare you offend us? Bone grind and ash! The bloody light outside the 13 people's bodies became more intense, causing the air to sizzle as it was corroded. For a time, the space within a radius of 10,000 feet was completely frozen, and the air became extremely heavy. In the distance, Fanning Xiong and the others could not help but feel their hearts palpitate. They were all shocked by the aura emitted by the 13 people. Even Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor of the older generation, who were at the reaching heaven level, could not help but tremble slightly, shocked by this aura. In the whole group, except for Lin Tian, who was in the battlefield, Wu Yi and her parents did not have any change in expression. Back off! I'll kill him! A cold voice sounded. The blue-robed middle-aged man spoke. His essence, qi, and spirit were much stronger than the other 13 people. At this time, a more vigorous bloody light burst out, as if a blood beast of death that had been sealed for eternity had broken through the seal. It was very terrifying. Lin Tian looked at the blue-robed middle-aged man, then glanced at the other 13 people, and looked very calm. No need to fight, all of you come together. Outside his body, strands of 9-colored holy light intertwined. I'll kill you all in 10 breaths. As soon as he said this, the blue-robed middle-aged man's eyes suddenly became colder, and the killing intent in the eyes of the other 13 people became more intense. The blue-robed middle-aged man stared at Lin Tian cruelly. Insolent thing! Do you think that just because you managed to injure us once, you can really fight against us? Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing and clanging, directly interrupting the man's words. At this moment, Lin Tian moved. He directly brought out his current peak combat power and used it to activate the reincarnation sword manual. In the next moment, he transformed into a sword radiance and instantly appeared in front of the blue-robed middle-aged man. Then, he slashed down with his right hand. Such speed and sword might cause the blue-robed middle-aged man to be shocked. You pooh! Blood splattered everywhere. As Lin Tian's sword slashed down, the 9-colored sword radiance exploded and chopped this person into pieces. Even his soul was destroyed. Instantly, the expressions of the other 13 turned grim. The blue-robed middle-aged man was the strongest amongst them, yet now, he'd actually been instantly killed. One of them spoke, eyes full of shock, face full of disbelief. How could this be? Clang! Lin Tian turned into a ray of sword light and appeared in front of this person. He performed the reincarnation sword technique again and chopped down with his sword fingers. With a puff, this person didn't even have time to react before he was instantly shattered. Even his spirit was annihilated. The other 12 people trembled and couldn't help but retreat. Damn it! One of them was shocked and angry, and shouted loudly. He's not ordinary! Let's... Clang! The sword chimed again, interrupting this person's words. Lin Tian attacked. At this moment, he directly performed the 9 reincarnation swords. He used the reincarnation forging divine art to increase his battle prowess by 20 times. 9 rays of sword radiance flew out. Pu 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 pu. 9 of them were hit by the reincarnation sword radiance, and instantly shattered. Their bodies and souls were destroyed. You! Out of the dozen people, only 3 were left. The coldness and arrogance in their eyes disappeared at this moment, and fear appeared in their eyes. Never in their wildest dreams would they have thought that a single human would be able to kill 11 of them in an instant. "Let's go!" one of them spoke. His voice was trembling. He directly tore through the void and escaped. At the same time, the other 2 stepped forward and instantly disappeared. In the blink of an eye, 11 of them had been killed. At this moment, they were shocked by Lin Tian's battle prowess. Such battle prowess was definitely not something they could resist. They were terrified. Lin Tian lifted his head and stood in his original position. 9 black moons appeared in his eyes one after another. At this moment, he opened his eye of destiny and calmly scanned the void in front of him. Between heaven and earth, an illusory order suddenly surged out and surged into the void in front of him. "No!" Miserable screams were mixed with indescribable fear. The void in that area split open, and 3 rays of blood fog appeared. Then, they were instantly destroyed by fate. 5 breaths. Lin Tian muttered to himself. The 9 black moons disappeared in his eyes, and his pupils returned to normal. After so many years, with his current cultivation, although he could not say that he could open his eye of destiny at any time, it was much easier than before. Moreover, the burden on his body was far less severe than before. This brat, his battle prowess is really... Ling Yun's eyes widened. He was frightened by Lin Tian's battle prowess at this moment. At the same time, Bai Ziki, Fan Ningxiong, and the rest were also shocked. Even Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor were no exception. They could clearly feel how terrifying the blue-robed middle-aged man and the rest were. But now, they were all killed by Lin Tian in such a short period of time. His battle prowess was really frightening, especially when Lin Tian opened his eye of destiny at the last moment. The group couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. "As expected of Big Brother!" The Violet Fairy giggled. "As expected of Daddy!" Ruoxian also spoke. At this moment, she jumped over and hugged Lin Tian's arm. Her eyes were sparkling. "Daddy, your god eyes are so cool! Open them again and take a look!" Lin Tian smiled. In the face of his precious daughter's coquettishness, he naturally wouldn't reject. His eye of destiny opened again. 9 black moons appeared one after another in his eyes. They were linked together by strands of doubt patterns. They were natural and mysterious. Beside him, invisible destiny naturally surrounded him. Even Ruoxian was surrounded by it. It made him look like the master of destiny, sacred and majestic. "So cool! So beautiful!" Ruoxian hugged Lin Tian's arm and stared at Lin Tian's eyes without blinking. Her big eyes became even brighter. Xianhuang, the crocodile ancestor, Bai Ziki, and the rest also looked at Lin Tian's eyes at this time. Their eyes were all full of shock. "Although I've seen it more than once, it's still hard to suppress the shock in my heart when I see it again." White Tiger took a deep breath. "Speaking of which, Big Brother, what are those eyes?" The Violet Fairy stepped forward and asked. After so many years, she hadn't changed much. She still looked like an 11 or 12-year-old girl. She looked like a real fairy. Yes. What are those eyes?" Sushu also jumped over. She was the reincarnation of the Divine Phoenix. After so many years, she had completely refined the fruit of her previous life and stepped into the heaven ascension state. Now, she was even more beautiful. At this time, her beautiful face was almost touching Lin Tian's cheek. Her big eyes blinked and looked curiously at Lin Tian's eyes. At the side, Bai Ziki, Wishing Crocodile, and the rest heard this and couldn't help but look at Lin Tian. Chapter 2283. Lin Tian naturally wouldn't hide anything when he met everyone's gazes. He gave a simple explanation of the Eye of Destiny. The Eye of Destiny can control destiny. This is really... Wishing Crocodile, Bai Ziki, and the others were all shocked. "It's very powerful! Very powerful!" It's one of the three strongest eye techniques along with the Eye of Time and Eye of Reincarnation, Ruoxian said proudly. Her father had one of the three strongest eye techniques, the Eye of Destiny. Wishing Crocodile, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the others couldn't help but be shocked. There's an Eye of Time and Eye of Reincarnation? Ling Yun's eyes widened. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. Fanning Xiong, Black Dragon, and the others were also shocked. Bai Ziki said. Now that he had the Thunder God physique, he naturally had the power of the Thunder God. He looked at Lin Tian strangely. Speaking of which, you have the Reincarnation King physique. Logically speaking, shouldn't you control the Eye of Reincarnation? Indeed, why is it not the Rinnegan, but the Eye of Destiny? Black Dragon said. He used to be a real dragon and called himself Black Dragon. Now that he had reached the end of the void sky, he naturally had the power of a dragon around him. Big brother, it seems a little strange. Ziyu was also curious. She looked at Lin Tian with her sister, Violet Fairy. It's a little strange. Yang Qi also looked at Lin Tian. After so many years, his cultivation had reached the peak of the void sky realm. The essence energy he exuded was extremely frightening, not the slightest bit inferior to that of an ordinary king physique. His entire body was like an unsheathed sacred blade, as if a slight movement could cut through all things. Everyone looked at Lin Tian, including Shin Qi and Mu Xingshu. Logically speaking, Lin Tian had the reincarnation physique. Of the three sacred eyes, the most likely one to control should be the Eye of Reincarnation. However, Lin Tian controlled the Eye of Destiny. Don't look at me like that. I don't know either. Lin Tian spread his hands. He had thought about this question before, but in the end, he couldn't figure it out. As he spoke, his Eye of Destiny disappeared, and his eyes returned to normal. Now, although the burden on his body was not as great as before when he opened this pair of divine eyes, it still consumed a lot of saint energy. When the group of people heard this, they were more or less surprised. Even Lin Tian himself didn't know. However, this surprise did not last for long, and it disappeared in the blink of an eye. By the way, what did you find out when you searched the blue-robed middle-aged man's sea of consciousness? Have you found out who those people are? Ling Yun opened his mouth and said, The transformation void stage that the person mentioned earlier, is it the division of levels after the heavenly ascension stage? Hearing his words, the others couldn't help but look at Lin Tian. Even Wu Yi was no exception. Here everyone knew that there were higher levels after heaven ascension, but they didn't know the specific division of levels. Got it. Lin Tian nodded. After searching the blue-robed middle-aged man's sea of consciousness, he found out about a dozen people's origins. They were from the Nether clan. This clan was also one of the forces that formed the Celestial Court. They were many times stronger than the Heaven Protectors. As for the realms after Heaven Ascension, he did find out from the blue-robed middle-aged man's sea of consciousness. Including Heaven Ascension, they were the Heaven Ascension Stage, Void Transformation Stage, Great Void Stage, Soul Reincarnation Stage, Path Fusion Stage, Transformation Stage, Origin Returning Stage, and Mysterious Heaven Stage. Among them, the Heaven Ascension Stage was once thought by many cultivators that there were no sublevels in this large realm. However, in reality, this was not the case. The Heaven Ascension Stage was divided into 9 sublevels, known as the 9 Heavens. It was also known as the 9 Changes of Heaven Ascension. After that, the Void Transformation Stage, Great Void Stage, Soul Reincarnation Stage, Path Fusion Stage, Transformation Stage, Origin Returning Stage, and Mysterious Heaven Stage were divided into the early, middle, and peak stages. Based on the powerhouses he'd met so far, he made a detailed division in his mind. The first to third levels of Heaven Ascension were the strength of the Celestial Master of the Celestial Court. The fourth to sixth levels of Heaven Ascension were the strength of the Ancestor of the Celestial Court, and the 18-winged powerhouses of the Heaven Protectors. The 7th to 9th levels of Heaven Ascension were the strength of the 36-winged powerhouses of the Heaven Protectors. The Void Transformation stage corresponded to the 48 winged powerhouses of the Heaven Protectors. The Great Void stage corresponded to the 72 winged powerhouses of the Heaven Protectors. In other words, it was the level of the supreme powerhouses of the universe. The Soul Reincarnation stage corresponded to the Great Ancestor of the Heaven Protectors. After that, there were the Path Fusion stage, Transformation stage, Origin Returning stage, and Mysterious Heaven stage. Of those he'd met, he didn't know who was at this level. He only knew one thing, and that was that the last few realms were extremely terrifying. He sorted out his thoughts and explained this matter in detail to the group. Immediately, the group couldn't help but be moved. The Heaven Ascension stage is divided into 9 levels, the 9 transformations of Heaven Ascension? The White Tiger was shocked. After that, the Void Transformation stage, the Great Void stage, the Soul Reincarnation stage, the Path Fusion stage, the Origin Returning stage, and the Mysterious Heaven stage. Beside him, the others were also moved. Ruoxian sensed her own body according to Lin Tiandao's division of realms and said, "Oh, I seem to be at the 4th level of Heaven Ascension. We are at the 3rd level of Heaven Ascension." Same. Xian Huang and the crocodile ancestor spoke one after another. Then, the 2 old antiques couldn't help but blush with shame. They had lived for so long, and not only had their cultivation been surpassed by Lin Tian, even Lin Tian's daughter had surpassed them now. Sushu sensed her own cultivation. "I seem to be at the 2nd level of Heaven Ascension." The White Tiger, Little Taichu, and the others also sensed their own cultivation. Little Taichu and White Tiger were at the 1st level of Heaven Ascension. Xinqi and Mu Xingshu were at the peak of the Great Void stage. Shuiyi, Baiqiu, Jiyu, Linxi, the Little Fox, Yitong, Violet Fairy Ziyu, Black Dragon, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the others were all below Heaven Ascension, so there was no need to sense. "Father, what level are you at exactly?" Ruoxian asked Lin Tiandao. "Middle stage Void Transformation," Lin Tiandao said. As he spoke, he looked at Wu Yi and sensed Wu Yi's essence, energy, and spirit. "Middle stage Soul Reincarnation?" "Yes," Wu Yi replied softly. "You're still the best." Lin Tiandao couldn't help but smile. The group talked a lot about the division of cultivation between Heaven Ascension and Heaven Ascension. Then, the topic landed on the dozen or so people from before. "The Yellow Springs Clan? Hearing this name, it's really a little scary." Wishing Crocodile clicked his tongue. "Not only is the name scary, but their strength is also very scary," Lin Tianao said. "That clan seems to have a Rebirth Realm expert overseeing it." Rebirth Realm. White Tiger sucked in a breath of cold air. "Much scarier than the Heaven Protector clan." The strongest member of the Heaven Protector clan was only at the Soul Reincarnation realm, and he had just broken through to the Soul Reincarnation realm in this era. However, the Yellow Springs clan had a Rebirth Realm expert overseeing it. In terms of level, they were much higher than the Heaven Protector clan. "They are indeed much scarier than that clan." Lin Tianao nodded. He looked at the key in his eyes, paused, and continued. "From the sea of consciousness of that Yellow Springs clan cultivator just now, we learned that the Heaven Protector clan seems to have been destroyed. Even the great world where the clan was founded has disappeared completely. Originally, the great apocalypse of this universe was managed by the Heaven Protector clan. After that clan was destroyed, the Yellow Springs clan took over. That's why we met the Yellow Springs clan." Chapter 2284. "What?" Hearing Lin Tian's words, the White Tiger was shocked. "The Heaven Protector clan has been completely destroyed? Even the great world where the clan was founded has been erased?" He had personally witnessed the Heaven Protector race's 1772 winged powerhouses being instantly obliterated by the old drunkard. He knew that the Heaven Protector race had suffered heavy losses, but he didn't know that the Heaven Protector race's great world had actually vanished. Hearing Lin Tian's words, the Divine Key looked at Lin Tian and opened his mouth to say something. However, in the end, he did not say anything. She was an expert of the Heaven Protector clan, and knew that the Heaven Protector clan's world had been erased by an old drunkard. Among the group of people, she was the only one who knew. Previously, she did not tell the White Tiger and the others about this matter, not even Wu Yi, because there was no need for it. At this moment, she looked at Lin Tian with a puzzled expression. She wanted to tell Lin Tian that it was the old drunkard's doing, but she was worried that it would cause unnecessary trouble. Therefore, she swallowed the words that were already at the tip of her tongue. As for the complete destruction of the Heaven Protector clan, she was not sad at all. Back then, she had done too many things for her clan and made too many contributions. She did not owe the clan anything, but the clan had killed her once and even wanted to kill her daughter and granddaughter. Now, from the bottom of her heart, she had already severed her relationship with that clan. "Senior, what do you know?" Lin Tian noticed the abnormality of the divine key and could not help but ask. Actually, he should have called the divine key mother-in-law. However, he felt that it was a bit unnatural to call her that, so he still called her senior. "No, I just found out." The divine key shook her head. Lin Tian was suspicious. She felt that the divine key's expression was a bit strange, as if she wanted to say something, but she had some misgivings. However, he did not ask any further about this. "Oh right, speaking of which." The White Tiger opened its mouth and looked at Lin Tian strangely. "Brat, you stepped into the void transformation stage from the heavenly ascension stage and crossed a great realm. Why didn't the heavenly tribulation descend?" Ever since Lin Tian stepped into the sky-piercing realm, they had been together for a period of time, until Lin Tian stepped into the void transformation stage. However, during this process, they did not see any void transformation heavenly tribulation pressing down. Hearing this, Lin Tian couldn't help but be moved. He had not thought about this before, but now that the White Tiger had mentioned it, he felt that it was a little strange. When he stepped into the void transformation stage from the heavenly ascension stage, he was indeed not suppressed by the void transformation stage's lightning punishment. "It should have been erased by your master." Wu Yi suddenly opened his mouth and said softly. There's such a thing?" Lin Tian frowned. The White Tiger was also surprised. But there was no heavenly tribulation at that time. It had witnessed the entire battle in the illusory flame starsea, but it did not see any heavenly tribulation lightning clouds appear. "For a moment, there was the aura of a lightning tribulation," Wu Yi said. At that time, Lin Tian had suddenly become demonic. For a moment, although his cultivation was far inferior to hers, his fighting strength had surpassed hers, and the aura of the lightning tribulation had appeared after that. At that time, she could only vaguely sense it. Now that she thought about it, at that time, when Lin Tian had become demonic, he should have been able to quickly release his potential. At that time, he had broken through to the void transformation stage, attracted the lightning tribulation, and emitted the aura of the lightning tribulation. It was also at that time that an old drunkard appeared and wrapped Lin Tian in holy light, and the aura of the lightning tribulation disappeared in the blink of an eye. Now, it could be confirmed that at that time, it was an old drunkard who had silently erased Lin Tian's void transformation heavenly tribulation. After all, at that time, with Lin Tian's condition, it was impossible for him to undergo tribulation on his own. Of course, she did not mention the specific details, nor did she mention the matter of Lin Tian becoming demonic. "Why don't I have any impression of it?" Lin Tian was a little strange. However, even though he said that, he did not continue to probe further. Since Wu Yi said that an old drunkard had erased his heavenly tribulation, then there must be no mistake. Buzz! In the middle of the mountain range, 7-colored holy light interweaved and surged out from the ground like waves. The 7-colored light pulsed and became even more resplendent. Lin Tian immediately collected his thoughts and looked down at the ground. He said goodbye to Wu Yi and the others and walked forward. Soon, he arrived at the center of the mountain range. The 7-colored holy light rushed out from the ground and was right in front of him. As he came to this position, the divine sword in his sea of consciousness trembled, and the ground trembled as well. The 7-colored holy light rushed out from the ground and became a little thicker. Then, a moment later, a fist-sized seven-colored light appeared from the ground. As soon as it appeared, it interweaved with an even thicker holy light. It really is a sword soul fragment. Wishing Crocodile was surprised. There are sword soul fragments in this universe? Previously, it had already known that Lin Tian had found a sword soul fragment, but now that it saw it with its own eyes, it could not help but be a little surprised. Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, Fanning Xiong, and the others all knew about the existence of the Rainbow Divine Sword and the Sword Soul Fragment. At this time, like Wishing Crocodile, they were also a little surprised that such a Sword Soul Fragment actually existed in this universe. Lin Tian was in the middle of the mountain range. Looking at the Sword Soul Fragment rushing out from the ground, a little light intertwined in his eyes. He took a deep breath and raised his right hand slightly. As the divine sword in his sea of consciousness trembled slightly, the sword soul fragment directly rushed into his body. In an instant, it came to the side of the divine sword in his sea of consciousness, and then, in a flash, it merged with it. Buzz! Just like in the past, as the new sword soul fragment merged, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth absorbed by the sword soul fragment directly spread to every corner of his body. Lin Tian was already very familiar with this. He immediately ran the Reincarnation Heart Sutra to refine the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Time flashed, and in the blink of an eye, an hour passed. After an hour, the new sword soul fragment had completely merged with the divine sword. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was brought into his body by the new sword soul fragment was also completely refined by him. His essence, energy, and spirit were many times stronger than they were an hour ago. He took a deep breath slightly, and the strong holy light outside his body gradually disappeared into his body. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared. Okay, he said and returned to the side of Wu Yi and the others. In this world, the smell of blood in the air was very strong. Looking into the distance from this place, one could see a large number of corpses. Most of them were incomplete, and it was a shocking sight. Let's go, he said. He came to this place to get the sword soul fragment. Now that he had gotten it, there was no need to stay here. In the blink of an eye, he and the group stepped out of this great world. The Nether clan is stronger than the Heaven Protector clan, and they have more people than the Heaven Protector clan. They are the real high-ranking clan of the Celestial Court. Now that this clan has taken over the great destruction of this universe, the situation of this universe will be even worse. The speed of the universe's destruction should be many times faster than before, he said. Based on the information obtained from the blue-robed middle-aged man's sea of consciousness, there are at most 10 years before the complete destruction of the black-yellow universe. He continued, it will only take another 10 years before the complete destruction. Then, there are at most 3 years before the destruction of 70%. When the destruction of the universe reaches 70%, it will be the best time to comprehend the order. He looked at Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Yen Yer, Lin Shi, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, and the others. Before that, in these 3 years, strive for everyone to step into the heavenly ascension realm. After that, we will have more confidence in comprehending the order. Let's go. Let's go grab the jade bottles that contain the life essence. Although these are the life essence condensed after the deaths of thousands of innocent souls and there is a psychological burden to use them, it is definitely countless times better than handing them over to the Celestial Court. We will refine them and destroy the Celestial Court in the future. It can be considered as revenge for the thousands of souls that were cruelly killed by the Celestial Court. Lingyan said. Lin Tian nodded. Immediately, the group increased their speed and entered one great world after another. They killed groups of Celestial Court masters and snatched the jade bottles that were filled with life essence. Just like that, more than 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. Boom! 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 More than 2 years had passed. On this day, a strong pressure of the heavenly ascension realm rushed out from a barren world. After more than 2 years of refining and cultivating the jade bottles that were filled with life essence from the Celestial Court, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Ji Yu, Yen Yer, Lin Shi, and Bai Ziki had all stepped into the heavenly ascension realm. Great! Lin Tian couldn't help but smile. Now, the weakest in their group was at the first tier of the Heavenly Ascension realm. Their combined combat power was extremely strong. He opened his mouth and continued, counting them. The time until the destruction of the black-yellow universe is 7, Dong. Chapter 2285. Lin Tian's expression changed as the heavens and earth rumbled. At the same time, Roxian Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Su Shu, Yen Yer, Lin Shi, and the others were also moved. This is? The white tiger's pupils constricted involuntarily with a hint of excitement. Lin Tian's eyes glinted. Great destruction, 70%! At this moment, there was no need to think too much. There was no doubt that after more than 2 years since the Yellow Spring Clan took over the destruction of this universe, the destruction of the black-yellow universe had reached 70%. The heavens and earth had a reaction at this moment, and the heavens and earth had spontaneously emerged. At this moment, it was the best time to comprehend the power of order. Begin! He looked at Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Su Shu, Yen Yer, Lin Shi, Ling Yun, and the others and said in a deep voice. The group of people naturally understood what he meant and knew what time it was. They immediately stepped away from each other and began to circulate their ancient scriptures in this barren world. At this moment, they closed their eyes and began to comprehend the order scriptures. When 70% of the universe was destroyed, the heavens and earth's Tao and earth would react. The power of order in the heavens and earth would become many times more active than usual. It was the easiest time to comprehend and control the power of order. Lin Tian looked at Wu Yi and nodded slightly at Wu Yi. Then, he began to comprehend the power of order. On the other side, Ruo Xian, Xin Qi, and Mu Xingshu also activated their ancient scriptures and focused on comprehending the power of order in the heavens and earth. They had already controlled the power of order, but they had not cultivated it to the limit. During this time, it would be of great help to them in improving the power of order they controlled. Therefore, they also needed to comprehend the power of order. At this moment, Wu Yi was the only one who had not comprehended the power of order. She was as gentle and calm as water, protecting everyone. She had already cultivated the power of order to the peak. There was nothing for her to comprehend about this power now. She had completely mastered it when she was in the Divine King realm. She stood there quietly, a beautiful sight to behold. Her gaze fell on Lin Tian, and she looked at Lin Tian quietly. Lin Tian channeled the Reincarnation Heart Sutra at this moment. Outside his body, faint 9-colored holy light intertwined, gentle yet scorching. The laws of the world, he whispered. Order was also known as the laws of the heavens and earth. It was a power that was above the divine Tao and the eternal divine Tao. Comprehending and cultivating order was mainly divided into 5 stages. In the first stage, one would have a preliminary understanding of order, and the aura of order would be produced in one's body. In battle, one would be able to use the aura of order, and one's battle prowess would be greatly increased. It would have a strong effect on all kinds of divine arts. The second stage was to comprehend the aura of order on a deeper level and produce the power of order within one's body. This was the first step to cultivating order. The third stage was the integration of order, reaching the point where divine chains of order could be formed. The fourth stage was a deeper level of cultivation and comprehension, and one could evolve the sacred shadow of order. The fifth stage was the pinnacle stage, and it was to deduce one's own magical power of order. It could be said that in the path of order, there was almost no difference in the power of order that everyone controlled in the first 4 stages. It was only when one reached the 5th stage, the pinnacle of order, that one could see the difference in the power of order that everyone controlled. This was because in the 5th stage of order, everyone's magical power of order would definitely be different, and the divine power and holy effect it would have would be different. Lin Tian had already known about order. At this moment, he was thinking about it in his heart, while silently comprehending. Boom! The heavens and earth were roaring, and the myriad Tao and forces were incomparably active at this time. There were natural fluctuations of order drifting between heaven and earth. Lin Tian's essence, energy, and spirit were raised to the peak at this time. He captured the fluctuations of order between heaven and earth, and integrated his divine consciousness into it, seriously comprehending it. Just like that, time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Clang! On this day, there was a sound like the sound of a sword. Outside Lin Tian's body, chains of light appeared. With a clatter, there was an extremely shocking fluctuation of order, as if a volcano of order had erupted. Following the appearance of this fluctuation, Bai Ziki and the others who were comprehending order could not help but be startled awake. Seeing this scene, they could not help but be moved. Divine chains of order! It's only been 3 days, and he jumped to the 3rd stage of order? The white tiger, wishing crocodile, and Ling Yun all widened their eyes, looking at Lin Tian as if they were looking at a monster. Naturally, they already knew about the 5 stages related to order. At this time, seeing the divine chains of order outside Lin Tian's body, their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It had only been 3 days, and they had not even cultivated the aura of order. However, Lin Tian had actually reached the 3rd stage of order and cultivated divine chains of order. This was too shocking. Even super-universe supreme masters like Godly Qi and Mu Xingshu could not help but be moved. He has the Eye of Destiny, which surpasses order. He has already mastered it relatively well. It's not difficult for him to comprehend order now. Wu Yi said softly. It was rare for her to say so much to explain to everyone. When the group heard this, they were stunned at first, then they understood immediately. In other words, it was naturally very easy for a person to lift a 70-kilogram stone after being able to lift a 50-kilogram stone. Whooshing Crocodile rolled its eyes. This fellow already has the Eye of Destiny, which surpasses order. Why is he still trying to comprehend order? It's not a burden to have more skills. Who would complain that they have more skills? Don't you understand this? Stupid! Ling Yun looked at it from the corner of his eyes. Io, you little pervert, stop looking at me with disdain. Whooshing Crocodile almost gave him a slap with its claws. It was also at this moment that the surrounding air buzzed, and even more shocking ripples of order intertwined. Lin Tian was still trying to comprehend order, and had not woken up. At this moment, the divine chains of order outside his body were vibrating, and a divine shadow of order gradually condensed behind him. F*CKU. Whooshing Crocodile could not help but swear. The white tiger's eyes were wide open, and it could not help but tremble. You scared me to death. How long had it been? They were still shocked that Lin Tian had cultivated order to the 3rd stage in 3 days. The next moment, Lin Tian had cultivated order to the 4th stage and condensed a divine shadow of order. You are indeed Father. Super awesome. Ruoxian's eyes were shining with admiration and pride. Even super-universe supreme masters like Godly Qi and Mu Xingshu, who were at the pinnacle of the Great Void Realm, could not help but be moved again at this moment. They were shocked by this scene. 3 days, only 3 days, and he had cultivated order to the 4th stage. This was really shocking. It had to be known that before this, Lin Tian had never cultivated order. 1. Chapter 2286. This is simply a freak. Ling Yun looked at Lin Tian with wide eyes. At this time, everyone was shocked by the dense aura of order around Lin Tian's body. Their eyes fell on Lin Tian. As expected of Master. Yi Tong and the little fox were very close to each other at this moment. After the two of them became Dao companions, they had been together all these years. While teaching Dao to Lin Tian, they had also been cleansed by the power of faith every day. Now they were exuding a kind of pure aura. 1. Outside Lin Tian's body, the divine chains of order clattered. Behind him, the sacred shadow of order coiled, and his essence, energy, and spirit became more and more vigorous. It was also at this moment that he abruptly opened his eyes and looked up into the sky. At the same time, almost at the same time, Wu Yi, Shin Kei, and Mu Shishu also went up to the sky. With a cracking sound, the space at that location was torn apart as a crimson battleship appeared. The battleship was engraved with densely packed divine inscriptions. It was unknown what material was used to forge this battleship, but one could feel an extremely majestic pressure radiating from it. That is... Seeing Lin Tian, Wu Yi, Xin Ke, and Mu Xingshu looking there, White Tiger, Ling Yun, and the others also looked, and they couldn't help but be moved. There were 33 figures on the warship, all of them with a faint blood light intertwined around their bodies. They were very similar to the auras of the dozen people Lin Tian killed before. They were all from the Huang Quan clan, and all of them were at the peak of the void transformation stage. Almost at the same time, the dozens of people on the warship naturally saw Lin Tian and the others. As expected, there are outsiders here to comprehend order. Don't talk nonsense, kill them all. Our clan's top 100 heroes are cultivating order in a nearby world, and are moving towards the 5th stage. Don't let them affect our clan's heroes. The dozens of people had cold eyes. One of them immediately moved. With a cold and evil smile, he strode towards Lin Tianyi and the others and said, "Compared to the ants we killed before, these strange races are not bad. They don't look weak and are stronger than the ants. They should be able to struggle a little. Killing them will be more satisfying than killing the ants before. You can really enjoy killing." Clang! A sword hum sounded, but it was also like tangible chains colliding, cutting off this person's following words. Beside Lin Tian, a god sequence chain instantly flew out. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of this person. With a poof, it pierced through him. The man's face stiffened. The cold arrogance and evil smile on his face gradually froze. He looked at Lin Tian in disbelief. "You pooh!" The divine chains of order shook lightly, interrupting his words once more. With a pu sound, they shattered him into pieces, and even his soul was obliterated within them. Such a scene caused Yang Qi, the White Tiger, the Black Dragon, and the others to be moved. A peak void transformation stage expert of the Yellow Springs clan was actually killed by Lin Tian in an instant. At the same time, the other dozens of Yellow Springs clan experts on the warship were also moved. Soon after, these people's expressions turned incomparably cold. "You're courting death," the leader said coldly. He took a step forward and charged towards Lin Tian. However, at this moment, Lin Tian moved. In an instant, he disappeared from where he was and appeared above the warship. Without any unnecessary movements, his eyes were deep. He raised his hand and punched downwards. Behind him, the sacred shadow of order moved together with him. It was completely formed by the divine chains of order. At this moment, it grew to a height of 100 feet. Following his movements, it punched downwards. Boom! The sky shook as if a sacred drum of destruction had been beaten. The sacred shadow of order waved its fist following his movements. The huge iron fist of order fell, annihilating everything in its path. The destructive aura of order enveloped the space in all directions. Such a punch caused the dozens of Yellow Springs clan experts on the warship to be horrified. They were all frightened by the power of this punch. All of them roared in panic. At this moment, they all supported the order and faced Lin Tian's punch. However, it was useless. With a sizzling sound, the order supported by dozens of people was crushed by the iron fist of order in the blink of an eye. Then, the iron fist of order continued to press down and landed in front of them in an instant. Puff! 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 The bloody mist exploded one by one, the dazzling demonic red, and the warship was also torn to pieces. Dozens of Yellow Springs clan experts were annihilated one after another. Only one was left alive and was caught by Lin Tianyi. This is really dozens of experts at the peak of the void transformation stage, and that terrifying warship were actually killed with a single punch. Ling Yun, Fan Ningxiong, and the others could not help but gasp when they saw this scene. "Daddy is so powerful!" Ruo Xian's eyes were bright. The group looked at Lin Tian at this time. You! The Yellow Springs clan cultivator who was caught and imprisoned by Lin Tian was terrified and could not help but tremble. In this generation of their clan, there were 100 young heroes under the 10 most powerful godsons. They had gathered in a large world not too far away. Taking advantage of the fact that about 70% of the universe of Xianhuang had been destroyed, they had gathered together to study the 5th level of order. They had been ordered to be the bodyguards of the 100 young heroes of their clan, and had been patrolling the surrounding worlds. When they sensed the shocking fluctuations of order in this place, they had rushed over to investigate. When they found Lin Tian and the others, they immediately wanted to kill them. But unexpectedly, their group was actually not Lin Tian's match at all. In the blink of an eye, only he was left of the dozens of people. Don't kill me! This person was a middle-aged man wearing black armor. His voice was trembling. In the face of absolute strength, only fear was left. Lin Tian did not talk nonsense with this person. A wisp of divine thought of the origin directly went into the man's sea of consciousness. This middle-aged man in black armor was deliberately left behind by him. Previously, he heard from dozens of people that the top 100 young heroes of the Yellow Springs clan were comprehending the 5th stage of order in a large world nearby. He left this man behind to find out which large world the top 100 young heroes of the Yellow Springs clan were in from the man's sea of consciousness. His divine thought of the origin entered the man's sea of consciousness. In the blink of an eye, a dozen breaths passed. After a dozen breaths, at this moment, he withdrew his divine thought of the origin. With a slight movement of his mind, he destroyed the man's body and soul with a poof. 100 people, infinitely close to the Great Void Realm. Their control of order is at the 4th stage, and they are guarded by an expert in the early stage of the Great Void Realm. He muttered to himself. From the middle-aged man in black armor's sea of consciousness, he learned that in this generation of the Yellow Springs clan, except for the 10 divine sons who were already in the Great Void Realm, the other 100 most powerful young geniuses had all come to this universe and were taking advantage of this time to cultivate order. Now they were in the same large world and were guarded by an expert in the early stage of the Great Void Realm. And now, he already knew the coordinates of that large world. He revealed a cold smile. After a pause, he descended from the sky and briefly explained this matter to the group. You guys continue to comprehend order. I'll go and kill all of the so-called top 100 young heroes. Chapter 2287. Hearing Lin Tian's words, White Tiger and the others couldn't help but be moved. You're going alone? That's too dangerous. Those 100 people are ranked in the top 100 of the current generation of the Yellow Spring clan, and all of them have cultivated order to the 4th stage. Their combined power is terrifying. Besides, there's a Supreme Master of the Great Void stage guarding there. Now you don't have the Hingyan Heaven Advancing Pill to deal with them. White Tiger frowned. Shinqi and Mu Shishu stood up. Mu Shishu said, Shall we go? They were all at the pinnacle of the Great Void stage, so it was easy for them to kill the top 100 heroes of the Yellow Spring clan and the Supreme Master of the Great Void stage. No, I can deal with them alone, Lin Tian now said. After saying that, he didn't stay for long. He asked Wu Yi to stay behind to protect the group and tore open the world portal to leave. Bai Ziki, Wishing Crocodile, and the others were stunned. Did he really go alone? Mother, do you want to go and take a look? Ruoxian asked Wu Yi, somewhat worried. After all, there were 100 Supreme Masters of the Void Transformation stage there, and they were all rare geniuses. All of them had cultivated order to the 4th stage, and there was a Supreme Master of the Great Void stage guarding them. Their combined power was terrifying. No need, Wu Yi said. He was very calm from start to finish. There was not a trace of worry in his eyes. He can. Lin Tian left the previous world and moved forward according to the precise world coordinates. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths had passed. He was very fast, and after dozens of breaths, he arrived in front of a magnificent world. It was the world where the top 100 heroes and the Supreme Master of the Great Void stage lived, which he found in the sea of consciousness of the Yellow Spring clan cultivator. He directly stepped into it. As soon as they entered this great world, all they could see were broken mountains and rivers, and corpses everywhere. It was just like the great world they had entered with the sword soul fragment. The air was filled with the smell of blood, and it was a little pungent. The whole scene was like purgatory. Looking at this scene, Lin Tian's eyes suddenly became very cold, and his hands unconsciously clenched. It was not hard to imagine that all the living beings in this world had been wiped out. Now, this world had become a place of enlightenment for the Yellow Spring Clan's top 100 elites. He stood in place, and there was a corpse beside his feet. His eyes were wide open, and there was still fear and despair in them. He crouched down and closed the man's eyes. Rest in peace. He stood up and adjusted his breathing. His eyes became even colder. 9-colored holy light intertwined around his body and turned into a beam of 9-colored holy light. Like a human-shaped lightning bolt, he shot toward the center of this world. Soon after, he tore open a space portal and stepped into it, disappearing in the blink of an eye. After an unknown amount of time, he stepped out of the void from another position. As far as the eye could see, there was a majestic divine mountain in front of him. The spiritual chi inside was extremely astonishing. It was the only intact mountain in all directions. This was the central area of this world. He came here and looked at the center of the divine mountain. There was an extremely strong aura of order intertwining there. It was very shocking. He stepped forward, and his speed became faster. He left afterimages with each step. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the center of this divine mountain. Looking around, there were hundreds of celestial peaks in the center of the divine mountain. Among them, there was a figure sitting cross-legged on each of the 101 celestial peaks. Among them, 100 looked young, and the other was an old man with deep eyes. Found him. His voice was cold. Almost at the same time, the 100 or so Yellow Spring Clan elites in this area naturally found him. The 101 people looked at him, and their eyes narrowed. Reincarnation body, the leading old man said, and a bright light appeared in his eyes. The Heaven Protector clan was destroyed, and the great world where the clan was founded completely disappeared. However, there were a few 48 winged elites of this clan who lived outside the great world where the clan was founded. They were lucky enough to survive. They knew about Lin Tian, the reincarnation body, and reported it to the Yellow Spring Clan who took over this universe. These 101 people had high status in the Yellow Spring Clan, so they naturally knew about this. Now that they saw Lin Tian appear, they recognized him at a glance. At this moment, the light in the eyes of the 100 young masters of the Yellow Spring Clan grew brighter. One of them said, "At this time, this great world is very suitable for the cultivation of order. We ordered to clear out this world as soon as possible. We didn't expect that the reincarnation body would also come here. It seems that this world is really good. It's a treasure land. We didn't do anything, but we can still lure the reincarnation body here." Looking at Lin Tian, this person sneered and said, "Suppressing him will definitely be a great merit. The higher-ups are very concerned about this round of..." Clang! An ear-piercing sword radiance sounded. Lin Tian did not say anything else. At this moment he moved. He displayed the reincarnation sword technique, and a 9-colored sword aura directly slashed at this person. It was so fast that it pierced through the void and penetrated this person with a poof. Moreover, because the sword momentum was too strong, after the 9-colored sword aura penetrated this person's body, it dragged this person's body and flew hundreds of feet away. A magnificent immortal peak was directly shattered into pieces, and a large amount of blood splattered out. It was a shocking sight. "All of you will die here. You will be buried with the countless creatures in this world," Lin Tian said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, a sonorous sound was heard. After piercing through the young elites of the Yellow Spring Clan, dense reincarnation sword aura immediately appeared and turned into a 9-colored sword rain that slashed down. It enveloped everyone in this place, including the Great Void Realm Elder, and attacked indiscriminately. Such sword power moved all the elites of the Yellow Spring Clan because it was really powerful. However, in the next moment, everyone's eyes turned cold again. "Arrogant bastard!" one of the young elites said coldly. Lin Tianyi and his people attacked all of them at the same time. They even enveloped the great Void Realm elders of the Yellow Spring clan who were guarding them. It was obvious that he did not take them seriously at all. As soon as he finished speaking, with a boom, the light of order directly intertwined around him. His aura surged and condensed into a sacred sword of order. It slashed down at Lin Tian from a distance. Suppress! Dozens of other young elites also spoke. At this time, they took action one after another. Each of them activated the power of order and great magic. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. With a thought, a vast pressure surged. This place shook the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it became pitch black. Clatter, clatter. In the pitch black sky, dense divine chains of order appeared immediately. They were like real chains, turning into a rain of divine chains of order and pressing down. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The attacks launched by the 99 young elites of the Yellow Spring clan were all shattered in an instant. The divine chains of order launched by Lin Tian continued to press down and penetrated the 99 people. Blood splattered everywhere. Kneel down for me! Chapter 2288. As the grand handprint of order pressed down, the void was annihilated. Lin Tian was fearless. In the heavens above, divine chains of order released Walala noises. Under his will, they turned into a holy sword of order, facing this person's great hand imprint of order, severing a large expanse of space. Boom! The two collided in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's sacred sword of order shattered immediately, and his body trembled violently. How dare a mere void transformation attack me? You're overestimating yourself, the elder from the Nether clan said coldly. The grand handprint of order continued to press down on Lin Tian without slowing down. More and more void was annihilated. The majestic pressure instantly fell in all directions, causing Lin Tian's body to tremble slightly. He felt a great pressure. However, his expression did not change at all. It was still cold. 9 black moons appeared in his eyes at this moment. They were connected by strands of Tao inscriptions. They were mysterious and unpredictable. In all directions, the illusory fate gathered immediately. It cooperated with his divine chains of order and faced the elder's grand handprint of order head-on. In the blink of an eye, the two collided. This time, the grand handprint of order of the elder from the Nether clan shattered instantly and disappeared without a trace. You! Suddenly, the elder from the Nether clan was moved. The Eye of Destiny! You really have it! They had learned about Lin Tian's reincarnated body from the remnants of the Heaven Protector clan. They knew that Lin Tian had the Eye of Destiny. However, when they saw it with their own eyes, they could not help but change their expressions. At the same time, the young expert from the Nether clan who had been pierced and sent flying by Lin Tian flew back. The other 99 young experts had recovered from their injuries. When they saw this scene, their expressions also changed, just like the elder from the Nether clan. The Eye of Destiny, one of the 3 supreme eye techniques. These young experts of the Yellow Springs race were all extraordinary. At the very least, they knew a lot of things. At this time, after their wounds were healed, they looked into Lin Tian's eyes. Many of them couldn't help but clench their fists. Their eyes were full of cold light, and they carried a bit of jealousy. A trifling human, not only has he been tainted by reincarnation, even his fate. They believed that their bloodline was extraordinary and was even stronger than the bloodline of the chaotic body. However, no one in their race had ever been able to control the Eye of Destiny. Now, Lin Tianyi was a human. Not only was he a reincarnated body, but he also controlled the legendary Eye of Destiny. This made them feel uneasy. Why was Lin Tian able to control it? Buzz! Between the heaven and earth, fate surged mightily, completely enveloping the space within a radius of 10,000 feet. This was a power that transcended order. Although the Eye of Destiny is powerful, you're only in the void transformation realm. You can't unleash too much of its power. The eyes of the elder from the Yellow Springs race were cold. The aura of order moved, and a divine shadow of order was formed. Other superpowers and secret skills were unleashed at the same time. Once again, they pressed down on Lin Tian. Kneel down obediently, and you'll suffer less. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He stepped forward, and boundless fate moved with him. He faced the elder from the Yellow Springs race. Before he came to this place, he could clearly sense that he could open the Eye of Destiny at any time. Therefore, even though he knew that there was an expert in the initial stage of the Great Void Realm here, he wasn't afraid. With his cultivation at the middle stage of the Void Transformation Realm, his comprehension of order had reached stage 4, and his Eye of Destiny, he wasn't afraid of an expert in the initial stage of the Great Void Realm at all. Boom! He fought with the elder from the Yellow Springs race. Order and fate collided, causing the void to shatter and the land to sink. The nearby celestial peaks collapsed one after another. When the 100 young experts from the Yellow Springs race saw this, they stared at Lin Tian. One of them said coldly, "Let's attack together. We'll use all our strength to help the elder suppress him. A mere human dares to attack our race. How dare he?" As he spoke, a divine shadow of order appeared behind him. It was more than 1,000 feet tall, and it was surrounded by divine chains of order. At the same time, the other 99 young experts attacked together. They all condensed divine shadows of order, and they pushed their strength to the limit. Boundless light of order pressed down on Lin Tian like raging waves. Lin Tian controlled fate and fought fiercely with the elder from the Yellow Springs race. He naturally paid attention to the 100 so-called talents from the Yellow Springs race. Seeing them attack at this time, his expression didn't change at all. There was only coldness and indifference. He didn't say anything. Above the firmament, the boundless divine chains of order rattled. These were his divine chains of order. At this moment, following his will, they pressed down once again, shrouding all 100 of the Netherworld tribe's geniuses. This time, the power of these divine chains of order was dozens of times stronger than before. The aura of order was extremely terrifying. In an instant, the divine shadows of order that the 100 young experts from the Yellow Springs race summoned were all shattered. The divine chains of order clattered and penetrated all of them. Die! A cold word came out from Lin Tian's mouth. The divine chains of order that penetrated the bodies of the young experts from the Yellow Springs race suddenly exploded. An unparalleled aura of destruction swept out like raging waves, bringing with it a large amount of blood and miserable screams. Among the 100 young experts from the Yellow Springs race, 97 of them had their physical bodies shattered. Their divine souls were also shattered in an instant. At this moment, only 3 of the 100 young geniuses managed to preserve their divine souls. They were both shocked and terrified. The 100 of them attacked with all their might and summoned the 4th divine shadow of order. However, Lin Tian summoned the 3rd divine chain of order and defeated all of them who were at the peak of the void transformation stage with their cultivation base at the middle stage of the void transformation stage. In an instant, 97 of them were killed. Bastard! The elder from the Yellow Springs race was terrified to the extreme. His eyes immediately turned red. Apart from the 10 divine sons, the 100 strongest people in this generation of their race all had astonishing potential. They would be the pillars of their race in the future. But now, 97 of them were killed by Lin Tian in an instant. How great was this loss? After this, how was he going to explain to the Patriarch and the Supreme Elder in the race? He roared angrily. The power of order became even more shocking. It attacked Lin Tian wildly and forced the 3 people who were still alive to retreat. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. In the sky, another 3 divine chains of order fell and attacked the divine souls of the 3 people who were still alive. Don't even think about it! The elder from the Yellow Springs race roared. Endless divine chains of order interweaved and met Lin Tian's divine chains of order to protect the 3 people. If I want them to die, they will die, Lin Tianling said. His eyes moved and boundless luck surged, directly intercepting the divine chains of order. Chapter 2289. The aura of order intertwined, and the divine chains rattled as if they were colliding with each other. "Human!" roared the elder from the Yellow Spring clan. His eyes were bloodshot. The Yellow Spring clan was one of the top 100 elites under the 10 divine princes. They were the future mainstays of the clan. Yet they were all killed by Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. Boundless fate moved with his eyes and pressed down on the elder. "It's only 100 people. How many living beings have died in your hands in this world? Do you know their hatred?" he said coldly. The elder from the Yellow Spring clan roared. "You're just a bunch of low-level clans. How can you compare to us? How dare you compare them to us? Are you very powerful?" said Lin Tianlin. He stepped forward. Although his cultivation was only at the mid-stage of the void transformation stage, he was not afraid of this great void stage expert. After all, he had cultivated the 4th stage of the order technique. With the support of the Eye of Destiny, his overall combat strength was almost comparable to when he was in the illusory Flame Star Ocean. Back then, he could kill an expert at the early stage of the Great Void stage. Now, he could do it again. In the surroundings, boundless luck moved along with him. Moreover, divine chains of order also circled around him, emitting an intimidating aura. "Kill!" roared the elder from the Yellow Spring clan. He could feel how terrifying the Eye of Destiny was. He immediately activated the 4th stage of the Order Sacred Shadow. However, with Lin Tian's boundless fate and the divine chains of order, the Order Sacred Shadow was not much of a threat. After a simple collision, it was shattered by Lin Tian. Only the starlight of order was left in the sky. Lin Tian stepped forward. The Eye of Destiny vibrated slightly. The divine chains of order pressed forward and attacked the elder from different directions. Although this elder from the Yellow Spring clan was at the early stage of the Great Void stage compared to the 72-winged Heaven Protector clan that he had killed before, his combat strength was much stronger than the early stage Great Void stage experts of the Heaven Protector clan. His bloodline aura was much stronger than the Heaven Protector clans. However, even so, Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. The current him was able to suppress this person. Boom! 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 An intense confrontation ensued. The aura of order and destiny spread. Blood continuously splashed out. This was the blood of the old man from the Yellow Springs tribe. In the short exchange of blows, the old man from the Yellow Springs tribe was crushed 9 times. Lin Tian was definitely on top. Bang! Once again, the old man from the Yellow Spring tribe was swept away. His aura was extremely weak, and his face was drained of blood. This person clenched his teeth, incomparably shocked and furious. His palm directly drew out a sphere of resplendent divine splendor, blasting it out of this great world. The elders will soon know everything that has happened here. You will not have a good ending. My clan will never let you off. This person's voice was filled with ruthlessness. Lin Tian glanced at the divine splendor that the other party shot out. He knew that the other party was reporting to the clan about what had happened here. Regarding this, he could have stopped him at this moment, but he didn't do so. This was because there was no need to do so. This clan belonged to the Celestial Court, and they were here to deal with him. Letting the higher-ups of the Yellow Springs tribe know that he had killed the top 100 talents of this clan, and this Great Void stage elder would not affect him at all. Instead, it would make the higher-ups of this clan suffer for a while. His eyes were indifferent as they landed on the old man from the Yellow Springs tribe. The Eye of Destiny vibrated slightly, pulling open a long river of destiny. Go and apologize to the countless living beings in this world. The long river of destiny pressed down with his will. Together with the dense divine chains of order, it directly drowned this person. With a poof, the old man from the Yellow Springs tribe was directly crushed. His divine soul was also annihilated. This place instantly became much quieter. Around them, hundreds of celestial peaks collapsed because of the battle here. The surface of the ground sank by more than 100 feet because of this. Middle stage void transformation stage. With the Eye of Destiny and the 4th stage power of order, I should be able to fight against a mid-stage Great Void stage expert at most now. I can't go any further than that, he muttered to himself, estimating his current strongest combat power. Then, the eye of destiny closed, and the order dispersed along with it. Immediately, traces of light intertwined in his eyes. Killing this great void stage universe supreme master from the Yellow Springs tribe was different from killing him in the illusory flame star ocean. Now, he did not take the bowed and that temporarily increased his cultivation level like the eternal yen heaven advancement pill. He relied entirely on his own strength to fight across realms and kill a great void stage universe supreme master. This was a strength that truly belonged to him. Whoo! A gentle breeze blew past, bringing with it a strong smell of blood. He stood there, and the light in his eyes gradually dispersed. Looking at the dilapidated mountains and rivers, he paused for a while, opened the world portal, and disappeared in a flash. Not long after, he left this great world and returned to the world where Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others were at. He went to the place where they comprehended the order. After Lin Tian left, Bai Ziki, Fanning Xiong, Ling Yun, Snow Wolf, and the others all stopped comprehending the order. At this time, when they saw Lin Tian return, their expressions could not help but change slightly. You settled it? Wishing Crocodile could not help but ask. It's settled. Lin Tian nodded. As soon as he said this, in this place, apart from Wu Yi, everyone's expressions changed. It's really settled? So fast? White Tiger's eyes widened. There were a total of 100 great beings at the pinnacle of the void transformation stage in that place, and all of them had cultivated to the 4th stage of the order. All of them were young geniuses of the Yellow Springs tribe, and there was even a great void stage great being in charge. With such a lineup, Lin Tian went there with his cultivation level at the middle stage of the void transformation stage. In less than 2 hours, he had actually settled everyone? My current combat strength is about the same as when I used the bowed and to raise my cultivation level to the great void stage, so there's no problem. Lin Tian explained briefly, then continued. Let's leave this place first, and change to another place to comprehend the order. Kill all of those people, and the Yellow Springs tribe might send a large number of experts here. Oh yes, yes, yes! Change places, White Tiger said, and at this moment, he put away his surprise. Let's go. Lin Tian spoke, and directly left this great world with the group. After that, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. They found a new great world, which was a desolate small world. Even when 70% of this universe was destroyed, it was difficult to attract the attention of others. Arriving at this small world, he took out the Bodhi tree and placed it in the middle of the group. Together with Bai Ziki and the others, he continued to comprehend and cultivate the order. Wu Yi, on the other hand, was still standing quietly, protecting the group. Just like that, time passed. In the blink of an eye, a full 3 months had passed. 3 months later, on this day, the relatively active order between heaven and earth gradually calmed down. The active myriad of Tao and force between heaven and earth also converged, returning to its usual appearance. Outside Lin Tian's body, the light of order surrounded him. The aura of order was even denser than 3 months ago. At this moment, he opened his eyes. The peak of the middle stage of the void transformation stage, the end of the 4th stage of the order. He muttered to himself. In 3 months, he had comprehended the cultivation of the order. He had cultivated the order to the end of the 4th stage, and would soon be able to deduce his own order divine ability. Chapter 2290. The Light of Order and the 9-colored Holy Light Intertwined. Lin Tian sensed his current cultivation realm and order level, and then sensed the changes in other aspects of his body. His essence, qi, and spirit were much stronger, and his combat strength had also improved greatly. Great! He muttered to himself, and a glimmer of light flashed across his eyes. The next moment, his mind moved slightly, and the light of order and the 9-colored holy light disappeared into his body at the same time. He then stood up. Almost at the same time, the other group also opened their eyes and stopped comprehending order at this time. He looked at the group and found that the weakest among them had reached the third stage of order. Ruoxian was much stronger. After 3 months of cultivation, she had now reached the fourth stage of order and could condense the order Holy Shadow. Shinqi and Mu Xingshu had made great progress in order in the past 3 months, but they were still at the fourth stage of order and could not step into the fifth stage of order. It's too difficult, Shinqi sighed. She had already comprehended order countless years ago and reached the fourth stage of order. However, after so many years, she still could not step into the peak stage of order after the destruction of the dark yellow universe to comprehend order. It was too difficult to step into the peak stage of order. She sighed. White Tiger, Ling Yun, and Wishing Crocodile were excited, and the god chains of order outside their body rattled. I didn't expect that one day, Lord Crocodile could also cultivate the legendary order and control the third stage of order. Wishing Crocodile was excited. He looked at the crocodile ancestor and smiled. Ancestor, I'm not worse than you now. He said so, but his eyes were still full of respect when he looked at the crocodile ancestor. During those years in the Hongming universe, the crocodile ancestor put in a lot of effort to completely intensify his 5 elements bloodline. Awesome! Awesome! White Tiger roared. Now that it had mastered order and cultivated to the third stage of order, it felt as if it had undergone an earth-shattering change. Although its cultivation base hadn't improved much, its combat strength had undergone a qualitative transformation compared to 3 months ago. For a time, the group stayed in this place, each sensing the order in their body and other changes in their body. Then, they skillfully mastered the order that they had comprehended. In this way, a full 7 days passed quickly. Boom! 7 days later. On this day, the barren world was in turmoil. Destructive auras surged in from the outside world. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly. He raised his head and looked outside the great world. Someone from the Celestial Court has come to destroy this world. The Celestial Court would eventually destroy all the worlds in the black-yellow universe. The world they were in now was barren and inconspicuous, but now, it finally ushered in the destruction of the Celestial Court. People from the Celestial Court? Kill them all! Let's go! Ling Yun and the White Tiger said as they rushed out. Outside this large world, dozens of powerful beings from the Celestial Court lived together, and one of them was a Celestial Master. Ling Yun and the White Tiger rushed out and immediately pounced over, unleashing their god sequence chains one after another. The leader of the Celestial Court was instantly horrified. You! Under the pressure of Ling Yun and the White Tiger's god sequence chains, this third-tier Celestial Master was directly annihilated. Crossing 3 small levels to kill an enemy, this feels really good! The White Tiger chuckled. Then, the man and tiger attacked again, enveloping the other dozens of celestial soldiers and generals with their god sequences and destroying them all. It was also at this time that Lin Tian, Wu Yi, and the others stepped out of the great world. Lin Tian said, Go to other worlds and continue what we did before. Seize the pristine jade bottle that the Celestial Court uses to collect life essence. At the same time, kill this group of people. He was not at all surprised that the White Tiger and Ling Yun could easily kill a Celestial Court leader and dozens of celestial soldiers and generals. After all, the man and tiger were at the first tier of the Celestial Court and controlled the god sequence chains. With the support of the god sequence chains, it was not difficult for them to kill an ordinary third-tier Celestial Court cultivator. Let's go! The White Tiger replied. Lin Tian nodded and walked into the distance with the group. They walked in the black-yellow universe and found that it was now too empty. More than half of the worlds had been completely destroyed by the Celestial Court. They had to walk for a long time in the universe before they could see a great world. The next great destruction will be our universe. Before that, we must do our best to become stronger, Lin Tian said in a low voice. In this extremely dilapidated black-yellow universe, the dozens of people traveled together. They found great worlds one after another, killed Celestial Court cultivators one after another, and seized the pristine jade bottles that contained life essence. Because 70% of the black-yellow universe had been destroyed, The remaining great worlds were all at the level of the supreme grade. Therefore, the pristine jade bottles seized from these supreme grade worlds were naturally very rich in life essence. Reincarnated body, you have made enemies of my clan time and time again and killed my people. You will die a horrible death sooner or later. You will die a horrible death. His angry roar shook heaven and earth. In a supreme grade world, an early stage great void stage elder of the Netherworld clan stared at Lin Tian and roared. His body was covered in blood, and his aura was extremely weak. Lin Tianyi, who had opened his eye of destiny, smashed him again and again. Not far away, the temporary battle camp of the Celestial Court in this great world had been completely destroyed. Except for him, all the Celestial Court cultivators who lived here, including dozens of transformation realm experts of the Netherworld clan, were killed by Lin Tian here. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. His eye of destiny trembled slightly, and boundless fate surged past. Behind him, the sacred shadow of order waved the sacred fist of order. Along with the boundless fate, it pressed down on the early stage great void stage elder of the Netherworld clan. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, the early stage great void stage elder of the Netherworld clan was turned into a mist of blood under the attack. His divine soul was also annihilated. Lin Tian raised his hand and grabbed the pristine jade bottle that contained the life essence. Then, he called for the others to leave. Let's go to other worlds, he said. He tore open a world portal in this world and left with the others. After that, they went to the remaining supreme grade worlds and killed the experts of the Celestial Court in them. They seized the pristine jade bottles that the Celestial Court used to collect the life essence. In the blink of an eye, 6 years had passed. In these 6 years, he and the others had collected hundreds of thousands of pristine jade bottles. The life essence in them was very rich. However, he did not refine them. He was prepared to bring them back to the primordial universe. The next great calamity would be the primordial universe. In the primordial universe, there were some elders and old friends of his. He had to bring the life essence back to strengthen his elders and old friends and help them increase their strength. At the same time, he could use the life essence to strengthen the immortal soldiers and immortal generals of the Celestial Court that he had established. Chapter 2291. In the past few years, the Immortal Court had been constantly expanding. Many young geniuses with extraordinary aptitudes had emerged. With enough resources, Lin Tian believed that these geniuses would become very strong and would be able to shine brightly in the future. As the Lord of the Celestial Court, he naturally had to pave the way for the young geniuses of the Celestial Court. This was his responsibility. Next world. He called out to a group of people, and they walked through the broken black-yellow universe, heading to other worlds. In the blink of an eye, another month passed. He collected more life jade bottles and killed more Celestial Court cultivators. On this day, the black-yellow universe suddenly shook violently, as if a destructive cosmic earthquake had occurred. This broken universe was suddenly shrouded in an extremely oppressive aura, and all Daos trembled. What's going on? This aura. Whooshing Crocodile trembled. At the same time, Bai Ziki and the others were also shocked. Lin Tian, Xin Qi, and Mu Xingshu also changed their expressions, shocked by the oppressive aura that suddenly shrouded the black-yellow universe. Even Wu Yi, who had always been incomparably calm, was no exception. It seems to be coming from the center of the universe. Lin Tian looked at the center of the black-yellow universe. In the center of the black-yellow universe, the universe space was dark, and a huge universe vortex emerged. A divine figure stepped out from within. His entire body was surrounded by boundless divine light, and his face couldn't be seen clearly. Only a pair of eyes that were as large as stars could be seen. There were all kinds of profound and unfathomable divine inscriptions intertwined in his eyes. Vaguely, it seemed as though the heavens and earth were collapsing, and the myriad Daos of heaven and earth were trembling before him. Following this divine shadow, 7 other people stepped out. They were as tall as ordinary people, and they stood respectfully behind the divine shadow. The divine shadow's eyes were as huge as stars, deep and indifferent. He stood in the center of the universe, and the whole universe began to tremble slightly. Endless power of Daos and the light of order emerged on their own, as if they had a consciousness and were worshipping the divine shadow. Reincarnation body! A loud voice suddenly rang out, shaking the entire black-yellow universe. The sacred shadow spoke at this moment. He looked at a certain spot in the black-yellow universe, and his eyes, which were filled with Tao marks, looked even more profound. The little ant from back then. Light surged from his body, crossing the universe and extending into the distance. In an instant, it covered billions of miles. Almost at the same time, in another part of the universe, Lin Tian immediately trembled violently. At this moment, he suddenly found it difficult to move. He didn't see anything, but he felt a destructive giant hand grabbing at him. At the same time, the others beside him were also unable to move. Even the strongest, Wu Yi, was no exception. In fact, at that moment, the group of people were unable to even speak. The extremely oppressive aura suppressed everything in the surroundings. The terrifying holy light spread from the center of the universe to the distance. The oppressive aura spread together with it, heading toward Lin Tianyi and the others. Along the way, dozens of worlds were shattered, and the universe space was annihilated. However, after 3 breaths, the holy light that was spreading toward Lin Tian suddenly shook slightly and shattered. In the center of the universe, about 10 feet away from the sacred shadow, an old drunkard in a white robe appeared silently. Who is it? Behind the sacred shadow, 7 figures looked coldly at an old drunkard. Then, the next moment, their faces involuntarily changed, and they couldn't help but tremble. You! The sacred shadow's eyes were as big as stars, and there were endless Tao patterns circling inside. They were so mysterious that ordinary people couldn't understand them. In another part of the black-yellow universe, Lin Tian trembled violently. The feeling of a terrifying giant hand grabbing at him disappeared. He could move again, but his spirit couldn't stop trembling. His whole body was cold. At the same time, the other people beside him were the same. Just now, Whooshing Crocodile opened his mouth. He couldn't stop trembling like Lin Tian, and there was horror in his eyes. Even the Divine Qi and Mu Xingshu were no exception. Dad! Ruoxian grabbed Lin Tian's clothes. Her beautiful face was pale. That feeling just now was too terrifying. Lin Tian tried hard to take deep breaths, and forcibly suppressed the trembling in his heart. He reached out to hold Ruoxian's hand. The unique 9-colored saint power poured into Ruoxian's body, alleviating the palpitations in her heart. Ruoxian's pale face gradually recovered. Then, he held Ruoxian in one hand and tore open the universe portal with the other. He called Wu Yi and the others to return to the primordial universe. At this moment, he remembered what Fengshen Tianzun said to him. When the black-yellow universe was 90% destroyed, it would be extremely dangerous. He felt that the abnormality at this time was related to the matter that Fengshen Tianzun mentioned. At this time, he felt that it was time to return to the primordial universe. Let's go! He said, and pulled Ruoxian, and stepped into the universe portal with Wu Yi and the others. They disappeared in the blink of an eye. At the center of the black-yellow universe, an old drunkard was wearing a white robe. He looked at the direction where Lin Tianyi and the others disappeared. His gaze was exceptionally gentle. Then, he looked at the huge saint shadow in front of him again. The saint shadow stood in the universe. His gaze fell on an old drunkard. Tao patterns revolved in his eyes, as if he could see through everything. You've surpassed the past. You've become stronger. His gaze fell on an old drunkard. He was indifferent and cold. Human King! His voice was like the roar of the heavenly Tao. The broken black-yellow universe trembled again, and the heavenly Tao became even more terrified. Become stronger? An old drunkard's gaze was indifferent. Compared to the saint shadow, his body was as small as a speck of dust. He didn't emit any powerful aura. However, under the indescribable terrifying aura of the saint shadow, he was as stable as the saint tablet of heaven and earth. The world is far more vast than you can imagine, Luan Hui King. The Saint Shadow's eyes were indifferent. Endless Tao radiance surrounded him like a servant. Human King, what do you want to say? He was the founder of the Celestial Court, Luan Hui King. In this world, he was the supreme being. Everything was just a speck of dust in his eyes. No one was worthy of his words, except for the person in front of him. Because the person in front of him was the human king. Born from reincarnation, you destroyed the universe, smelted the universe, and tried in vain to control the complete reincarnation to avoid being enslaved due to lack of strength after stepping into a higher dimension. An old drunkard said, "Do you really think you can control the complete reincarnation?" Luan Hui Wang's eyes that were as huge as the stars suddenly shook. Within his eyes, a glaring cold light burst forth. "Where did you find out about this?" His voice became cold. The light of reincarnation blossomed and annihilated the countless radiance. This king already felt that something was strange a long time ago. "Human king, who exactly are you?" Rumble. The universe collapsed and completely disappeared. The endless light of reincarnation surged and mercilessly pressed down on an old drunkard. An old drunkard's eyes were deep. His expression was still as calm as before. He didn't say anything and silently disappeared from his original location. The endless light of reincarnation pressed down and caused the universe to collapse once again. Luan Hui King's eyes were cold to the extreme. He was no longer as calm as before. "Netherworld, Underworld, Rakshasa, let the three races prepare to head to the Grand Mist Universe. This king will personally come after 1,000 years. The universe trembled. Terrifying black holes appeared one after another. The universe started to truly collapse. The collapsed universe turned into strands of cosmic light and unceasingly flowed into his body. The 7 people behind him trembled slightly. They all knelt down on one knee and saluted. "Yes." The 7 people responded and slowly retreated. They disappeared from this place. Grand Mist Universe, the starry sky was densely packed with stars. The starlight was gentle. Buzz! Chapter 2292. The twinkling stars were exceptionally gentle. Lin Tian pulled Ruoxian back to the Hongming universe from the black-yellow universe with Wu Yi and the others. "I almost thought I was going to die." Ling Yin shuddered. "What exactly was that aura that came out of nowhere? It's scary." The white tiger was also trembling. Everyone's face was slightly pale at this time. That oppressive aura was really too scary. Lin Tian took a deep breath to calm himself down. "Let's not think about it for now. Let's go back first." "Let's go back. Let's drink a few jugs to calm down," Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian pulled Ruoxian. His eyes flickered, and a starry gate appeared. They disappeared from the spot. The next moment, they appeared in another place. In front of them was a colorful star. It wasn't big, but its aura was a little hazy, giving it a sense of mystery. It was the 10 Directions ancient star. "I haven't been back for a long time." Lin Tian now. He had returned to the Hongming universe before to bring Ji Yu and the others to the black-yellow universe. However, he didn't return to the 10 Directions ancient star at that time. It had been many years since he came here. He couldn't help but miss it. He paused for a moment, pulled Ruoxian, and called Wu Yi and the others to land on the 10 Directions ancient star. The black-yellow universe and the crocodile ancestor weren't on this ancient star. However, they still followed Lin Tianyi. The divine Qi and Mu Xingshu naturally followed them. Soon, they entered the 10 Directions ancient star. Lin Tian led them to the headquarters of the Immortal Court in the 9th heaven. "Lord Immortal Emperor!" The Immortal Court was located in the 9th heaven, and after so many years, it had become the #1 holy ground in the 10 Directions heavens. Even in the entire Grand Mist universe, it was fully deserving of the title of the #1 inheritance. The Immortal Court had always been guarded by immortal soldiers and immortal generals. Now that they saw Lin Tian, the Lord of the Immortal Court, returning to the Immortal Court, they were pleasantly surprised and excited. In the past, Lin Tian had single-handedly suppressed the chaos in 10 Directions Heaven. Then, he led the entire 10 Directions Heaven to repel the invasion of the Netherworld race, forcing them back to the sealed dust ancient realm and sealing them. Then, he unsealed the 10th heaven and preached the Tao to the cultivators of 10 Directions Heaven. He was a legendary figure in 10 Directions Heaven. His prestige even overshadowed the 9 heavenly sovereigns. These soldiers and generals were proud to have such a leader. At the same time, these immortal soldiers and immortal generals also knew that Wu Yi and Ruoxian were here, so they bowed to Wu Yi and the others. "There's no need for that. Don't worry about us." Lin Tian was very easygoing. He hadn't returned to the Immortal Court for a long time. He led the group directly into the Immortal Court. After years of improvement, the main Immortal Court where he stood had become extremely magnificent. The area it occupied was tens of thousands of times larger than before, and the spiritual energy inside was no longer comparable to before. The group returned to the Immortal Court on this day, but they didn't do anything for the time being. Lin Tian, Wu Yi, and the others took Shen Qi, Mu Xingxu, Xian Huang, and the crocodile ancestor to walk around the Immortal Court, introducing them to the various locations. Inside the Immortal Court, many immortal soldiers and immortal generals were moving about. All of them had a solemn expression and were full of vigor. When they saw Lin Tian and the others, they bowed one after another. After that, they did not stay for long and quickly continued with their own matters. "Amazing inheritance!" Xian Huang exclaimed. He saw that the immortal soldiers and immortal generals in the Immortal Court were far inferior to him in terms of cultivation base. However, he saw that all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals had a kind of righteousness and fearlessness in their eyes. This was the rarest thing. Even the disciples of the powerful clans like the Yellow Spring clan didn't have this kind of thing. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. "Senior, you flatter me," Lin Tian said modestly. He led the group into the Immortal Court. Soon, night fell, and the group gathered in the depths of the Immortal Court. There were many spiritual fruits and immortal wines. The group drank to their heart's content and relaxed for a short time. At the same time, they discussed how to deal with the Celestial Court. The black-yellow universe would soon be completely destroyed, and the primordial universe would be next. This was the last universe in this world. They must protect it. Otherwise, everything would be over. That night, he had a lot of discussions with the group. It wasn't until the sun rose the next morning that they came to an end. "Let's go to the lower heavens." On a new day, he asked Little Taichu, wishing Crocodile Dill, and White Tiger to accompany Crocodile ancestors Xian Huang. He asked Little Fox and Yi Tong to accompany Xing Yu and Mu Xingxu. He took Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and Ji Yu and left the Immortal Court for the lower heavens. In the lower heavens there were other elders, old friends, and sects that he had stayed in before. He took Ruoxian and the others and gave them precious weapons and divine objects, as well as jade bottles full of life essence, to help these elders and old friends improve their strength. He stayed in the Burning Sun sect for the longest time, staying for half a month. In half a month, he helped the great elders of the Burning Sun sect, the sect master, and several other elders to refine their life essence. Then, he personally preached to all the disciples of the Burning Sun sect. In just half a month, the Burning Sun sect had become countless times stronger. At the same time, during this process, he told some of the things about the heavenly court to some of the elders and old friends in the lower heaven domains. These elders and old friends were not very strong, but by telling them these things, they could prepare in advance. Time flew by. From the moment he left the 9th heaven to the lower heavens, 20 days passed quickly. 20 days later, on this day, he took Wu Yi and the others back to the main clan of the Immortal Court. He summoned all the disciples of the Immortal Court in the 10th heavens and gathered them in the Immortal Court martial arena. There were more than 900 million people. He told them all about the Celestial Court, and then took out jade bottles full of life essence to improve the strength of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals. At the same time, just like in the Burning Sun sect, he preached to all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals, answered all the doubts of the immortal soldiers and immortal generals, and personally practice some relatively complicated divine abilities and great techniques for them. The battle in the future will be very cruel. You have to work hard. This universe is our last place of survival, he said in a deep voice. Be fearless! All the immortal soldiers and immortal generals roared in unison. After learning about the horror of the celestial court, they didn't have the slightest fear. Instead, their eyes were filled with endless fighting spirit. Good! Continue to cultivate. If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to ask me. Lin Tiandao waved his hand, took out the Bodhi tree, and placed it in the immortal court martial arena. Chapter 2293. The Bodhi tree swayed, sitting in the center of the huge martial arts practice field, rustling. For a moment, the group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals only felt that they had become incomparably ethereal in an instant. Some of the Tao techniques and divine arts that were difficult to understand in ordinary days suddenly became clear at this time. Many people rose 2 or 3 small levels in the blink of an eye. The legendary Bodhi tree! Thank you, Immortal Emperor! The group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals roared in unison. They belonged to the immortal court. In the immortal court, all the ancient books that Lin Tian had brought back could be read by all the disciples of the immortal court. These immortal soldiers and immortal generals knew far more than ordinary cultivators. If you can become stronger and survive in the future war, it will be the best thanks to me. Lin Tian now. The group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals nodded heavily, and then devoted themselves to cultivation more diligently. Lin Tian stayed in the martial arts practice field, watching the group of immortal soldiers and immortal generals cultivate, helping them to solve their doubts. Whenever someone came forward to ask, no matter who it was, he would explain seriously. We finally understand why everyone in this inheritance is so righteous and fearless. With such a leader, it's only natural for them to be like this. Xian Huang watched from the side and couldn't help but sigh. It's too rare. The crocodile ancestor also nodded. Since ancient times, which inheritance master would personally lead all the disciples in the inheritance to cultivate? Personally solve all the disciples' doubts? As far as they knew, there had never been an owner of any inheritance who had managed to do this. This was because every inheritance clan had a clear hierarchy. It was impossible for the people in the highest positions to lower themselves and personally lead ordinary disciples to cultivate. However, Lin Tian was not like the masters of other great inheritances. Lin Tian did not have the slightest arrogance. Although he was the master of the immortal court, he was on good terms with all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals of the immortal court. He almost treated all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals as friends. Lin Tian didn't rule the immortal court with his strength. Instead, he ruled the immortal court with his heart. In this way, how could these immortal soldiers and immortal generals in the immortal court not be loyal to such a leader? As long as there was such a leader, these immortal soldiers and immortal generals had nothing to fear. Because these immortal soldiers and immortal generals knew that no matter when, no matter where, no matter what kind of disaster they faced, their leader would not abandon them and would face it with them. Boom! 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 On the training field of the immortal court, waves of divine energy surged. Lin Tian took out many jade bottles filled with life essence and handed them to the immortal soldiers and generals to refine. Immortal soldiers and generals were constantly breaking through on the training field. Lin Tian stood on the training field, his powerful divine sense enveloping the entire training field. Whenever someone made a breakthrough, he would immediately help them stabilize their cultivation. At the same time, he imparted his cultivation experience to all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals. Thank you, Immortal Emperor! The immortal soldiers and immortal generals roared. These cultivation experiences were not treasures of heaven and earth, but they were better than treasures of heaven and earth. For these immortal soldiers and immortal generals, these experiences could save them a lot of detours in the future and help them become stronger faster. Lin Tian shook his head. Then, he told the immortal soldiers and immortal generals the specific division of the major realms in the future, and shouted in a low voice. Work hard! As the lord of the immortal court, these immortal soldiers and generals were all his subordinates. He had given them everything he could. In the future, the ultimate battle would erupt in the primordial universe. The battle would be very cruel, and the immortal court was destined to participate in it. He only hoped that some of his subordinates could survive. He would do everything he could to ensure that they could kill their enemies in the future and protect themselves in future battles. On this day, he sat here. At the same time, Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, Little Taishu, White Tiger, and Wishing Crocodile left the 10-direction sky domain with many jade bottles filled with life essence. They went to the various branches of the immortal court in other regions to help their disciples improve their strength. Yitong, the little fox, and Snow Wolf led some other powerful immortal soldiers and generals. At his request, they went to the various great worlds above the starry sky and withdrew all the branches of the immortal court back to the starry sky. After experiencing the great calamity of the Xianhuang universe, he clearly knew how terrifying the celestial court was. Instead of scattering the power of the immortal court across the universe, it was better to concentrate it in this part of the starry sky and have all the immortal soldiers and generals work together to defend this last fortress. In this way, a month passed in the blink of an eye. He sat on the training field and explained the Tao to all the immortal soldiers and generals for a month. 1 month later, he erected the Bodhi on the training field and had all the immortal soldiers and generals work hard to cultivate. Then, he left the field. It was also on this day that Bai Ziki, Ling Yun, and Wishing Crocodile returned from the other branches of the immortal court and returned to the main branch of the immortal court in the 10-direction sky domain. All the jade bottles filled with life essence have been evenly distributed to the various branches of the immortal court. What happened in the heavenly court has been accurately conveyed to all the immortal soldiers and immortal generals in the immortal court. The immortal soldiers and immortal generals in various places have become much stronger and are still getting stronger, Wishing Crocodile said. The branches of the immortal court in the great worlds above the starry sky have all withdrawn and settled down in the various starfields in the starry sky, Yitong reported. The strength of the immortal court continued to grow. All the immortal soldiers and generals had withdrawn to the starry sky. There were branches of the immortal court in every corner of the starry sky. Good! Lin Tian nodded. After a pause, he said, Now let's make other preparations. We'll carve endless killing formations in every corner of the starry sky. He didn't know when the celestial court would invade the primordial universe and begin the great destruction of the primordial universe. Before that, he couldn't relax and had to make all the necessary preparations. Now, including the divine key, Mu Xingshu, Xianhuang, and the crocodile ancestor, there were dozens of existences above the immortal court. All of them had mastered the power of order at the 3rd stage. It wouldn't be difficult to carve killing formations in every corner of the starry sky. On this day, everyone nodded when he told them the plan. Then, everyone above the immortal court, including him and Wu Yi, went to every corner of the starry sky and carved killing formations one after another with great abilities. These killing formations were all at the immortal court level and were enhanced with the power of order. Even an ordinary early-stage immortal court expert could be killed easily. Especially the killing formation carved by Wu Yi, who was at the soul reincarnation realm and was at the peak of the power of order. It might even be able to kill an early-stage Tao fusion expert. Due to the fact that everyone was very powerful, it only took 3 months to carve killing formations in every corner of space despite the vastness of space. Then, Lin Tian passed the activation method of these killing formations to the branches of the immortal court in every corner of the starry sky. Once the final battle broke out, if any celestial court cultivators broke into the starry sky, they would activate the killing formations and kill them. Now, inform the other major forces and inheritances to prepare for the great battle. Lin Tian ordered Yitong, Little Fox, and Snow Wolf to send out immortal court experts to every corner of the primordial universe. They were to inform the other major forces and clans about the celestial court so that they could prepare for the upcoming battle. In addition, accurately inform them of the division of the various major realms in the later stages of the cultivation path. Chapter 2294. Upon receiving Lin Tian's order, Yitong, the little fox, and Snow Wolf immediately set to work. They dispatched groups of immortal soldiers and immortal generals to represent Lin Tian in relaying the news of the celestial court to the various major powers and clans in the primordial universe, as well as the detailed classification of the major realms in the later stages of the path of cultivation. For a time, the various major powers and clans in the primordial universe were shocked and horrified. They were shocked by the endless path of cultivation and the terrifying strength of the celestial court. Many of the clans couldn't help but panic when they heard the news. Some of the masters of the major powers couldn't help but tremble. "Quick! Order all disciples to work hard in their cultivation. Make preparations. Get stronger for this seat." Loud roars rang out from the various major powers and clans. The immortal court was now the #1 inheritance in the primordial universe, and Lin Tian's name as the immortal emperor had naturally spread to many places. Although the various major powers and clans in the primordial universe were shocked by the news of the celestial court, none of them doubted that the master of the immortal court wouldn't joke about it. 10 directions, celestial regions, 9th heaven. We've made all the preparations we can. Now, we have to work hard to improve our cultivation and battle prowess. Lin Tian now. Despite that, he didn't immediately enter seclusion. Instead, he called Wu Yi, Ruoxian, Jiyu, Baiqiu, Sushu, Shui Yi, Violet Fairy, and Lin Shi. The family left the immortal court and traveled to various parts of the primordial universe. Over the years, he hadn't spent much time with Wu Yi and the others. He hadn't spent much time with his daughters, and even less time with his 2 sisters. Now, the family was traveling to various parts of the primordial universe. According to the Milky Way Emperor Star, this was considered a vacation. He traveled with them to various corners of the primordial universe, relaxing with them. At the same time, he also gained a deeper understanding of this vast universe. Just like this, 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. He traveled to many places with them, and his state of mind was countless times more relaxed than it had been in the past 100+ years. It was like natural water that gradually gave birth to a completely new transformation. Almost at the same time, his body trembled slightly as a majestic force gushed out from the depths of his body. "Father, you've advanced?" Ruoxian looked at Lin Tian. She naturally noticed the changes in Lin Tian. His spirit, energy, and spirit had become much stronger. At the same time, Wu Yi, Jiyu, and the others naturally also sensed it. They involuntarily turned their heads to look at Lin Tian. Lin Tian naturally sensed this as well. He was slightly surprised for a moment before quickly regaining his composure. Peak void transformation. He smiled. The attainment of one's state of mind was also very important to a cultivator. In the past 3 months, when he was with Wu Yi and the others, he didn't think about anything else. His state of mind was incomparably relaxed and happy. Following that, his cultivation naturally improved as well, from the middle stage of the void transformation stage to the peak of the void transformation stage. His state of mind had improved once, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the void transformation stage. He sensed his body slightly, and immediately sensed the great changes in his body. Compared to 3 months ago, his battle strength had taken a huge leap and was many times stronger. Now, he even felt that he could kill ordinary experts at the early stage of the Great Void stage even without relying on the Eye of Destiny. "Congratulations, Father!" Ruoxian hugged Lin Tian's arm and giggled. Wu Yi looked at Ruoxian and smiled gently. Jiyu, Shui Yi, Baiqiu, Sushu, the Violet Fairy, and Lin Shi all looked at Ruoxian with doting expressions. She was their family's little princess. Lin Tian reached out and pinched Ruoxian's little nose lovingly. Boom! Suddenly, the sky shook violently. In the large world they were in now, in the sky above, the space suddenly broke open one after another, and figures stepped out one after another, all of them wearing the unique armor of the heavenly court, all of them extremely vigorous in essence, chi, and spirit. "Kill! Don't leave a single one alive!" Someone in the group of figures spoke. His voice was cold and emotionless. Immediately, the group of figures pounced down from the sky of this great world and attacked every corner of this great world. The aura of killing immediately spread out. Boom! 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 In just an instant, this world was engulfed in smoke. The figures that stepped down from the sky directly started a destructive massacre of the living beings in this great world. Screams immediately sounded from every corner of this world. Seeing this scene, Lin Tian was immediately moved. He had seen this scene in the dark yellow universe before. These cultivators were wearing the unique battle armor of the Celestial Court. There was no doubt that they were from the Celestial Court. This was the beginning of the Great Destruction. How can this be? He was shocked. The dark yellow universe was still in the midst of destruction and had not been completely destroyed. Moreover, it had not even been a year since they left the dark yellow universe. Now, the army of the Celestial Court had attacked the Hongming universe and started the great destruction of the Hongming universe. This was not normal. He had learned from the old Taoist, the old gangster, and other supreme masters of the older generation that after the collapse of the dark yellow universe, the Celestial Court would not be far from extending its claws of destruction to the Hongming universe. It would not be like the previous few great destructions, where there would be an endless gap of time. However, the time in between should be at least 1,000 years. Now, what was going on? Why was this happening? At the same time, Ruoxian Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shuiyi, Sushu, the Violet Fairy, and Lin Shi all turned pale. Even Wu Yi was no exception. There's someone here. Kill them! A cold voice rang out. Several celestial soldiers and celestial generals of the Celestial Court had discovered the group of people. They strode toward them, and one of them directly attacked. It was a middle-aged man at the peak of the sovereign realm. His essence, qi, and spirit were very powerful. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Lin Tianyi and the others. He raised his big hand, covered Lin Tianyi and the others, and mercilessly slapped them down. However, just as his big hand approached the group of people, it was directly shattered by the aura naturally intertwined around the group of people. Then, a strong force traveled up his shattered arm and spread to his physical body. With a poof, his physical body was shattered, and his spirit body was annihilated in a bloody mist. At the same time, the celestial soldiers and celestial generals who were with this person also suffered, and their bodies and spirits were all destroyed. He's not weak. He's at least in the virtual sky world. I didn't expect there to be humans at this level in this great world. Chapter 2295. As one of them moved, the other moved as well. Two first heaven ascension lords of the Celestial Court appeared in front of him in the blink of an eye. Holy light shone everywhere. Lin Tian raised his head while a shapeless pressure swept out, and it directly obliterated one of them. After that, he grabbed the other and restrained him. The red-haired man's expression changed when he saw this. He couldn't help but tremble. You bang! Lin Tian raised his hand and punched the man's abdomen, interrupting him. Then, he sent a wisp of divine thought origin into the man's sea of consciousness. Soon, dozens of breaths passed. His expression changed slightly. He withdrew the divine thought origin from the man's sea of consciousness. With a thought, he destroyed the man's body and soul. From the man's sea of consciousness, he learned that the great destruction of the black-yellow universe hadn't really ended. However, the Celestial Court had started the great destruction of the primordial universe, led by the Nine Remoteness, the Underworld, and the Rakshasa. The strength of each of the three clans was on par with the Yellow Spring clan. At the same time, the Netherworld clan assigned 50% of its battle strength to continue destroying the black-yellow universe. Meanwhile, the other 50% of its battle strength also headed toward this universe. Previously, he had learned from the old hooligan and the other supreme masters that the Heaven Protector clan had been the one in charge of the previous great calamities. After the Heaven Protector clan was destroyed, the Netherworld clan took over the great calamity of the black-yellow universe. However, the great calamity of the Hongming universe was suddenly brought forward. In terms of battle strength, It was led by the Netherworld clan, the Underworld clan, and the Rakshasa clan, which were as powerful as the Netherworld clan. Together with 50% of the battle strength of the Netherworld clan, they had joined forces to destroy the Hongming universe. He briefly explained this to Wu Yi and the others. They couldn't help but be moved. Why are they suddenly so anxious about the great destruction of the primordial universe? Moreover, the battle force invested is far more than the previous great destruction. It's as if they're deliberately targeting us. Bai Qiu frowned. Lin Tian naturally had the same feeling. It was as if the celestial court had become anxious because of something. After pausing for a moment, he decided not to think about it any further. Now that the great destruction of the primordial universe had begun, they had to deal with it as soon as possible. Let's return to the 10 directions, ancient. Clang! Suddenly, a terrifying murderous aura surged over, and the clanging of swords rang out, interrupting his next words. Samsara body! A cold voice sounded. In the distance, a purple-robed young man appeared. He stepped on the void and walked over step by step. His eyes were cold. Outside Lin Tian's body, 9-colored holy radiance interweaved and transformed into waves of water that rippled outwards, shattering the killing light that was pressing down on him. He raised his head and looked in the direction where the murderous light was coming from. His gaze fell on the purple-clad young man, and his eyes immediately moved. The 10th divine son of the Yellow Springs clan, Huang Qiuani, he said coldly. Back then, he had searched the sea of consciousness of a void transformation stage expert of the Yellow Springs clan and learned many things about the Yellow Springs clan, including the 10 strongest divine sons of this generation. At this time, he naturally recognized this person at a glance. He was the 10th divine son of this generation of the Yellow Springs clan. His bloodline was extremely powerful, and his cultivation was at the early stage of the Great Void stage. His battle strength was extremely terrifying, and he was far from an ordinary expert at the early stage of the Great Void stage. On the side, Ruoxian Jiyu, Bai Qiu, Shui Yi, Su Shu, Lin Shi, and the Violet Fairy were also moved. They naturally sensed that this person was not simple. His aura was extremely terrifying. Wu Yi was still calm. After all, her cultivation was already at the middle stage of the soul transformation stage. She was much stronger than her opponent. You were not suppressed in the Xianhuan universe. You really escaped to this universe. Huang Qiuani's eyes were cold. A blood-red holy light directly pressed down on Lin Tian. We met the moment we entered Hongmeng. This is the will of the heavens. You are destined to fall into my hands. I won't kill you. I will only suppress you. However, before that, I will let you deeply understand the pain. I will let you kneel and repent to the people of my clan who died in your hands. Back in the black-yellow universe, Lin Tian had killed the top 100 elites below the 10 gods' children of this generation of the Yellow Spring clan in a single battle. He had also killed an early-stage Great Void stage elder of this clan. Before that early-stage Great Void stage elder of the Yellow Spring clan died, he had sent a message back to the main clan of the Yellow Spring clan. Naturally, the upper echelons of the Yellow Spring clan knew about it. Knowing that all the top 100 elites below the 10 gods' children of this generation of their clan had been killed by Lin Tian, they were all furious to the extreme. As one of the 10 divine sons of this generation of the Yellow Springs clan, Huang Qiuani naturally knew about this matter not long after that. Boom! The blood-red light pressed down with a terrifying aura. It immediately sealed the space around Lin Tian, including Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and Jiyu. You want me to kneel? You don't have that ability yet. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He did not move. A large amount of reincarnation sword force appeared around him. It turned into a rain of swords and pressed down on the incoming holy light. Since you came to this universe, you will be buried in this universe. The reincarnation sword force was sharp and oppressive. It carried a vast and unparalleled sword essence. In the blink of an eye, it collided with Huang Qiuani's holy light. Boom! The collision of the two caused a roar in all directions. The void immediately collapsed. The blood-red holy light and reincarnation sword force were annihilated at the same time. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He took a step forward. More reincarnation sword force appeared and pressed down on Huang Chuanyi mercilessly. His cultivation was at the peak of the void transformation stage, while his opponent was at the early stage of the great void stage. Moreover, his bloodline was shocking. As the 10th divine son of this generation of the Yellow Springs clan, his combat power was much stronger than an ordinary expert at the early stage of the great void stage. However, he was not afraid at all. Huang Chuanyi's eyes were cold. The blood-red holy light intertwined and turned into a sea of blood. It pressed down on Lin Tian mightily. "Use your Eye of Destiny," he said coldly as he looked at Lin Tian. He naturally knew that Lin Tian was a reincarnated body and had the Eye of Destiny. He was at the early stage of the Great Void stage and was one of the 10 divine sons of the Yellow Springs clan. Even though he knew that Lin Tian was a reincarnated body and had the Eye of Destiny, he did not care at all. His face was cold and arrogant, as if he was the ruler of the world. "You don't deserve it, Lin Tian now." The reincarnation sword force became thicker. It cut through all directions and condensed into a sword diagram. It faced his opponent. The sword diagram and the sea of blood collided. A destructive aura wantonly spread. He clenched his fist. The reincarnation fist force vibrated and shot out a blinding fist light. It was ferocious and domineering. It seemed to be able to destroy everything. He could feel that Huang Chuanyi was powerful. Their cultivation was a whole realm apart. Now that he was facing his opponent, he was under a lot of pressure. However, he did not care. Although he could open his Eye of Destiny now, he did not use it. Chapter 2296. Boom! The saint energy vibrated, and the space around collapsed and was annihilated. Lin Tian performed the reincarnation sword technique, and waved the reincarnation fist, facing the 10th divine son of the Netherworld clan who was in the early stage of the Great Void stage. Although he felt the pressure, the expression on his face did not change at all. He was cold and calm, and the 9-colored saint light intertwined. Huang Chuanyi's eyes were cold. As the blood sea pressed down, he also moved, and the saint energy blood blades slashed down together. In the fierce confrontation, the destructive aura intertwined into tornadoes. Lin Tian used the reincarnation divine territory to protect his body, and the reincarnation sword technique and reincarnation fist were waved one after another. Immediately, the reincarnation diagram of the king's territory was supported together. For a moment, his fist aura was wide open, and his sword aura was sharp and terrifying. The sacred majesty of the king's territory completely shrouded and suppressed the space around. It shook off Huang Chuanyi's blood sea and blasted towards the other party. Huang Chuanyi's eyes were cold, and the faint blood light intertwined around his body. An even more shocking blood sea emerged and pressed down on Lin Tian. This blood sea was completely condensed by the fusion of saint energy and Tao energy, and it was mixed with a very terrifying corrosive power. In the blink of an eye, the two collided. For a moment, the space within 1,000 feet was shattered by the shockwaves of the two's confrontation. Whoosh! 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 The sound of the air being torn apart was heard. In this great world, there were many heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals of the celestial court, and they were all destroying this world. At this moment, sensing the fierce confrontation here, a large number of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals rushed over. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of people appeared in this place, and among them were more than 10 heavenly masters in the early stage of the heavenly passage realm. Lord! These people who appeared here naturally recognized Huang Chuanyi, and they all bowed respectfully. Huang Chuanyi's eyes were cold, and he ignored these celestial court cultivators. His eyes only fell on Lin Tian, and the blood sea's power became stronger at this moment, and the corrosive power was terrifying. Lin Tian also ignored the hundreds of celestial court cultivators. The reincarnation fist aura became stronger, and shook the sky. Rumbling sounds rang out. In all directions, even more of the void was annihilated, chaotic light spilling out, strands of destructive aura strands. You can actually be with that Lord. The hundreds of great beings of the celestial court who had come to this place were all shocked. Even the top heaven masters of the third tier of the heavenly connection realm were no exception. They all knew how terrifying Huang Quan Yi was. As the 10th son of God of the Huang Quan clan, he was at the initial stage of the Great Void stage and was much stronger than ordinary supreme masters of the universe. But now, in this part of the universe, there was actually someone who could fight with Huang Quan Yi like this right in front of them. Soon after, these people put away their shock and turned to look at Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others. He should be with that person. Behead him! One of the third heavenly layer heavenly lords said coldly. Kill! Another heavenly master spoke. Several hundred people, including more than a dozen heaven masters, moved at the same time, charging toward Wu Yi's group. Hundreds of powerful saint auras appeared at the same time, completely enveloping the space around Wu Yi, Ruoxian, and the others. Bai Qiu snorted, and the starry sky moon appeared. The stars and the moon seemed to be real inside, enveloping a third heavenly layer heavenly lord and dozens of other heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, and pressing down mightily. Pooh! 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 Blood splattered, and screams were ear-piercing. In an instant, the dozens of heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals, as well as the third heavenly layer heavenly lord, who were enveloped, were all shattered. Even their divine souls were annihilated. The other great beings all paled, and even the heavenly layer heavenly lords were no exception. They were all shocked by this scene, and they couldn't help but stop in their tracks. They stared at Bai Qiu without blinking. You buzz! Saint light intertwined, and a hazy light realm appeared behind Jiyu. Inside, the raindrops formed by the Saint Power Tao light rustled. They were clearly very gentle raindrops, but they gave people the feeling that they could pierce through and shatter everything. A blazing phoenix condensed behind Sushu, and it was scorching hot as if it could burn everything in the world. Spots of light appeared around Shuiye's body as he activated the Thousand Souls tomb of the king's territory. Pure demonic light surged, and the ancient immortal tomb appeared like the tomb of the gods. Countless immortal souls and demonic shadows surrounded it, and the demonic aura shook 30,000 miles, causing the sky to tremble violently. Lin Shi raised her hand, and a huge crack appeared in the sky. Countless pill seals and ancient runes intertwined inside, and the aura was extremely terrifying. The violet fairy pointed her sword at the sky and slowly swung it down. The great void god's slaying light cut through the sky, as if it was about to shatter the universe. I'm coming too! Ruoxian snorted, and her eyes flickered. She directly pulled open a long river of time, and the turbulent time laws flooded all directions. The few of them attacked together, and in an instant, the great world trembled violently, as if it was about to collapse in the next moment. The dozen or so heavenly masters and the hundreds of heavenly courts experts all shuddered. Their faces turned ghastly pale, and they couldn't even move. They were all suppressed by the laws of the divine ability unleashed by the Violet Fairy and the others. Everything froze. Pft! 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 Blood splattered, and in an instant, hundreds of people, including the dozens of heavenly masters at the third heaven of the Heaven Ascension realm, collapsed. Their divine souls were also annihilated. Mother hasn't even made a move yet. If you want to fight with us, you'd better get an old Tao fusion cultivator. Ruoxian snorted. Wu Yi stood to the side, looking at Ruoxian. There was a slight smile on her beautiful face, and her gaze was very gentle. The divine power laws intertwined in this place. In the distance, Huang Qiuani and Lin Tian were fighting. Huang Qiuani's eyes narrowed. Even though he was at the Great Void Realm, and his cultivation was much higher than Jiyu and the others, he couldn't help but be shocked by the combat strength of Jiyu and the others. He could see the realm of Jiyu and the others. It was extremely rare for them to have such combat strength in such a realm, even in the Huang Quan clan. Ruoxian, in particular, had mastered the legendary time laws. This kind of law was even more terrifying as one cultivated it. The combat strength they could use in the future was immeasurable. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of a sword rang out, and the sky trembled violently as a 9-colored sword aura slashed across. Lin Tian couldn't help but laugh. He couldn't help but be surprised by the strength of Ruoxian and the others. He couldn't help but feel very happy. Huang Qiuani, haven't the 10 divine children of the Huang Quan clan all cultivated to the 5th stage of order? There's no need to hide it. Let it out! He sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a rumble. He had not used the 5 heaven-shaking thunders for a long time. In an instant, a black sea of thunder was drawn. The power of the thunder surged, as if a heavenly tribulation had descended here, shaking the macro world. Chapter 2297. Lin Tian had rarely used the 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation over the years, and now, he used it again. With a rumble, the black lightning turned into a black sea of lightning. It was the lightning of the 5th level of the 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation. The power of lightning seemed to be able to destroy everything in the world. Huang Quanyi's eyes were cold as he faced the black sea of lightning. Divine chains of order appeared behind him, making clanking sounds. In just an instant, the divine chains of order vibrated and disintegrated the black sea of lightning, shattering it immediately. Hum! In this space, bloody holes appeared in the void in all directions, with the power to devour everything. The surging power of order was vast and mighty in all directions. Show me your eye of destiny! Huang Quanyi stood quietly in the field, his eyes cold as he looked at Lin Tian like a king looking at his subjects. Lin Tian's eyes were intertwined with light. He could feel the power of order in this dangerous power of order. The waves of order in the bloody holes were too strong, countless times stronger than the sacred shadow of order. Without a doubt, these bloody holes were the 5th level of order, the power of order. There's no need for that. His eyes were cold. Huang Quanyi was much stronger than the elder he had killed in the early stage of the Great Void stage. Although their cultivation realms were the same, the difference in their battle strength was like heaven and earth. At this moment, facing the bloody holes one after another, he felt tremendous pressure and even the threat of death, but he was not afraid at all. Facing these bloody holes of order, he directly propped up the divine chains of order, which circled around him. With a slight movement of his mind, the divine chains of order seemed to have a mind of their own as they swept towards his opponent like divine dragons of order. Huang Quanyi's eyes were cold and merciless. The bloody holes moved and pressed towards Lin Tian from all directions. With the power to corrode everything, they instantly corroded Lin Tian's divine chains of order. Outside Lin Tian's body, the divine chains of order appeared again. Moreover, the 5 heaven-shaking thunders incantation, reincarnation diagram of the king's territory, reincarnation fist light, reincarnation sword light, and other divine techniques were cast one after another. He also propped up the thunder divine Tao and nature divine Tao together, and blasted them towards his opponent. Huang Quanyi's gaze was cold as the bloody holes of order met Lin Tian's attacks, instantly annihilating all the divine abilities that he had cast. At the same time, the reincarnation diagram of the king's territory, thunder divine Tao, and nature divine Tao were all vaporized in an instant. Divine Tao, and divine Tao laws have been annihilated in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's eyes were deep and profound. The corrosion great Tao also had the power of corrosion, but it was qualitatively different from the corrosive power of Huang Qiuani's order divine ability. Huang Qiuani's order corrosive power seemed to be able to corrode everything in the world. Lin Tian Dao divine 2. Divine he put away his other superpowers, including protective divine arts like the Samsara divine territory. He took a step forward and closed in on Huang Quanyi. At this moment, he propped up the sacred shadow of order, surrounded by divine chains of order, and used order to attack. You're at the void transformation realm against the great void realm, and you're at the 4th stage against the 5th stage. Reincarnation body, are you underestimating me? Huang Quanyi's voice became cold. With a rumble, the bloody holes in the surroundings became even more terrifying, and the dense order seemed to be about to crush everything. For a moment, Lin Tian's divine chains of order were all annihilated in the blink of an eye. Even the sacred shadow of order cracked and shattered in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian's expression did not change, and he did not respond at all. His eyes were still deep, and the divine chains of order and the sacred shadow of order were displayed again, facing his opponent head-on. In the distance, Wu Yi, Ji Yu, Shui Yi, and the others had already seen that Huang Quan had brought out the fifth stage of order. Except for Wu Yi, the others could not help but be a little shocked. They secretly thought that the Huang Quan clan was indeed terrifying. It should be known that the fifth stage of order was very difficult to control. Someone as strong as Shen Qi of the Heaven Protector clan, who was the first goddess of the Heaven Protector clan in the Antiquity Age, was absolutely amazing. She had cultivated for countless years, and now her cultivation was at the peak of the Great Void Realm, but she still had not cultivated the fifth stage of order. However, Huang Quan looked much younger than Shen Qi. He was only at the early stage of the Great Void Realm, but he had already mastered the fifth stage of order. And this Huang Quan was only the 10th son of God of the Huang Quan clan. Above him, there were 9 more powerful sons of God, and the clan leader, supreme elder, and the ancestors of the clan. Those people should have also mastered the fifth stage of order. The strength of this clan was simply unimaginable. However, they were only shocked for a moment. In the next moment, all of their attention was focused on Lin Tian. "Father, why don't you use that pair of divine eyes? Can't you use it now?" Ruoxian was puzzled. "It doesn't look like it." "No." Bai Qiu shook her head. Naturally, she knew Lin Tian very well. She said, "Although there is a huge gap between his cultivation and that Huang Quan of the Huang Quan clan, he wants to use order against order. He wants to use his opponent's fifth stage of order to suppress his own fourth stage of order. He wants to try to break through to the fifth stage of order in this battle." "That's it." Su Shu nodded. They had all fought with Lin Tian before, so they knew some of Lin Tian's fighting habits very well. Boom! In front of them, there was a fierce battle. Lin Tian's eyes were deep. He used the fourth stage of order to fight against Huang Quan Yi's fifth stage of order. The sacred shadow of order was shattered again and again, and he was knocked back again and again. However, his expression did not change at all. In the starry sky of the primordial universe, the great destruction of this universe erupted on this day. In the starry sky, at this moment, countless heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals descended one after another. "Kill! Leave no one alive!" A Dominator-level heavenly general shouted coldly. Countless heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals rushed toward one star after another in an instant. However, almost at the same time, figures appeared in the starry sky. They all had extraordinary essence, chi, and spirit. These figures were wearing the unique immortal armor of the Celestial Court. They were the heavenly soldiers and generals of the Celestial Court. Under Lin Tian's orders, they guarded the various star zones in the starry sky and had been secretly patrolling the entire starry sky. When they saw the heavenly soldiers and generals, they immediately identified them based on the clothes and other characteristics of the cultivators of the Celestial Court that Lin Tian had given them. Bastards of the Celestial Court. Why are they here so soon? Activate the array. Kill. In the starry sky, the heavenly soldiers and generals rushed out one after another. The killing arrays that Lin Tian and the others had engraved in the starry sky were activated one after another. The killing aura that was powerful enough to kill a heaven-reaching expert instantly enveloped all the cultivators of the Celestial Court who had entered the starry sky. "You! Ah!" Screams rang out immediately. The cultivators of the Celestial Court who had entered the starry sky looked cold and callous just a moment ago, wanting to slaughter everyone in the starry sky. Then, fear appeared on their faces as they were crushed by the endless killing arrays one after another. Who do you think the Emperor of this starry sky is? It's the Master of the Celestial Court, the Lord Celestial Emperor. How dare you act so presumptuously here? Die! A powerful immortal general shouted coldly. The boundless killing arrays surged, their killing aura even more terrifying and frightening. In another part of the primordial universe, in a great world. Boom! Outside Lin Tian's body, divine chains of order surrounded him. The sacred shadow of order propped up again and again as he fought fiercely against Huang Chuanyi of the Great Void Stage. Blood holes of order intertwined around him, supporting the fifth stage of order propped up by Huang Chuanyi. The power of order propped up by the cultivation of the Great Void Stage was enough to easily kill a powerful existence of the middle stage of the Great Void Stage. Within this power of order, he fought with his peak void transformation stage cultivation and only the fourth stage of order. He was forced back again and again. Chapter 2298. Lin Tian took a step forward. Divine chains of order surrounded him, and the sacred shadow of order propped up. They combined and formed a storm. Huang Chuanyi's eyes were cold. The bloody holes formed by the sacred shadow of order corroded everything and bombarded Lin Tian. Boom! An intense battle ensued. The destructive aura was rampant. Time passed quickly. Lin Tian and Huang Chuanyi fought. In the blink of an eye, more than an hour had passed. In this place, space after space collapsed and was then corroded and annihilated by Huang Chuanyi's sacred shadow of order. Lin Tian's eyes were deep. He still didn't use the Eye of Destiny. With his peak void transformation stage cultivation and the fourth stage order, he faced the fifth stage order of Huang Chuanyi. The two sides collided again and again, shaking the surroundings. Huang Chuanyi's eyes were even colder. Even now, Lin Tian still didn't use the Eye of Destiny. With his peak void transformation stage cultivation and the fourth stage order fighting him, he felt that he was being underestimated. His eyes gradually became cruel. Then, with a rumble, the bloody holes of order became even more terrifying. They corroded the greater void, and even the order and air were corroded. Chi! 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 Soft sounds rang out. Lin Tian wasn't afraid. He still faced it head-on, using the fourth stage order to fight. He used the fourth stage order to fight against the fifth stage order of Huang Chuanyi. He sensed the other's sacred shadow of order, and used the sacred shadow of order to stimulate the growth of his sacred shadow of order. Daddy's sacred shadow of order is getting stronger and stronger. It seems to be getting closer and closer to the fifth stage order. Ruoxian stared ahead. Wu-Yi, Jiyu, Baiqiu, Shui-Yi, Sushu, Lin-Shi, and the Violet Fairy all stared seriously. Outside Lin Tian's body, the divine chains of order gradually became stronger. The aura of the sacred shadow of order became even more vast. He used order to fight against Huang Chuanyi, using his body to withstand his opponent's order blood hole. He used his flesh to feel the power of the order blood hole, analyzing and sensing it. His eyes became deeper and deeper as his comprehension of order became more and more thorough. Huang Chuanyi used the fifth stage of order to attack. The blood holes were densely packed, and as he moved, they pressed down on Lin Tian again and again. In front of these blood holes, the solid void of the great world was like a piece of paper, extremely fragile. Boom! 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 The aura of order surged, and the aura of destruction fluctuated. In the blink of an eye, another hour passed. More than an hour later, Lin Tian's body was covered in blood. He had been injured again and again. However, his eyes had become even more profound. One could faintly see stars revolving around him. The aura of order around his body had become even more shocking. At the same time, a cold light flashed in Huang Chuanyi's eyes. He finally realized that Lin Tian was using his power of order to refine himself. "You're courting death!" His voice was cold. Huang Chuanyi raised his hand, and his saint power erupted. All the order blood holes trembled and became larger. There were more of them, and their aura became more terrifying. Their speed became faster, and they pressed down on Lin Tian with a suppressive force. With a boom, tens of thousands of blood holes fell on Lin Tian's body in an instant. The void there was completely corroded on the spot. The light of destruction. With a sizzling sound, Lin Tian was hit by all the order blood holes. His body became a bloody mess, and every corner of his body was covered with cracks. It was as if a gentle breeze could blow his body into pieces. However, it was also at this moment that the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He smiled at this moment, and the injuries on his body began to heal quickly. An extremely powerful aura of order suddenly erupted, as if a volcano of order that had been dormant for tens of thousands of years had erupted. "I'll return your order to you," he sneered. Suddenly, dense sacred runes appeared on his body. They were mysterious and unfathomable. They were completely condensed from the power of order. He directly punched at Huang Kuan-yi. Boom! A glaring fist shot out from the tip of his fist. In an instant, it pierced through the great void and came close to Huang Kuan-yi. This punch was extremely terrifying, and its aura was extremely magnificent. Poof! Blood splattered. Huang Kuan-yi was directly penetrated, and a transparent bloody hole appeared on his body. Then, with the bloody hole as the center, his body began to corrode bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, his entire body turned into blood. This is corrosive power! Huang Kuan-yi's own Order God power, and it's even stronger than Huang Kuan-yi's previous attack. Ruoxian, Jiyu, and the others were all shocked. Lin Tian's punch actually blasted out the Order God power that belonged to Huang Kuan-yi. Moreover, it was obviously stronger than the Order God power that Huang Kuan-yi had displayed himself. It was about twice as strong. 5th stage order. He's reached it. Wu Yi's eyes lit up a little. He looked at the strands of Order Saint runes outside Lin Tian's body. Return all the offensive power that others have exerted on your body back to the opponent in double. 1. On the battlefield, the Order Saint runes outside Lin Tian's body interweaved, sacred and vast. His mangled body began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it was back to normal. All right. He clenched his fist, and a bright light appeared in his eyes. Without using the Eye of Destiny, he faced Huang Kuan-yi with his cultivation at the peak of the Void Transformation stage, and the order of the 4th stage. Borrowing the pressure of the 5th stage order, he finally broke through the limits of his own order and reached the peak of order. He evolved an Order God power that belonged to him alone. He could melt and precipitate all the offensive power that others had thrown at him, whether it was sword light, fist light, or the Order of Tao power, and so on. He transformed them into his own power and blasted them out with double the power. Absolute counterattack! He muttered to himself. It was very appropriate to give such a name to the Order God power that he had evolved. Gulyalu! The sound of flesh and blood squirming could be heard. Huang Kuan-yi's body was corroded into a bloody mist. Even his soul was greatly damaged. At this moment, he was severely injured. However, his body and soul were not destroyed. At this moment, he reformed his body. You! He looked at Lin Tian, his eyes full of shock and disbelief. Just now, Lin Tian had displayed the same Order God power as him. Moreover, the power was even stronger than his. This was hard for him to understand. However, as the divine son of the Yellow Springs clan, he was not an ordinary person. At this moment, looking at Lin Tian and the Order Saint runes outside Lin Tian's body, he quickly guessed many things. The order of the 5th stage, you evolved an Order God power. Just now, was it related to your Order God power? His voice was cold. Lin Tian had used his power to transform. At this moment, he had cultivated to the 5th stage of order and evolved an Order God power. He could use his power to attack him, and the power was doubled. Chapter 2299. Divine chains of order and saint runes of order intertwined around him. Lin Tian stepped forward and arrived in front of Huang Kuan-yi in the blink of an eye. Dense saint runes of order surrounded his body. Divine chains of order bombarded his opponent like heavenly dragons. Huang Kuan-yi reformed his body. At this time, his face was extremely pale. All the power of order that Lin Tian used to return to his body twice as much had suffered an unimaginable injury with just one blow. His essence, energy, and spirit had decreased greatly. Reincarnation body! His voice was cold as the blood holes of order opened up once again, pressing down on Lin Tian in a mighty manner. Lin Tian's eyes were deep and cold. With his peak void transformation stage cultivation base, he faced Huang Quan-yi, who was at the early stage of the absolute void stage. He fought with pure order power, erupting with pure holy light. Huang Quan-yi's blood holes of order fell beside him again and again. Outside his body, the saint runes of order were a manifestation of his divine ability of order. They could infinitely weaken the power of order. Although the blood holes of order that Huang Quan-yi summoned were terrifying and had a terrifying corrosive power, they were blocked by the saint runes of order outside his body time and time again. Moreover, while blocking these blood holes of order, the corrosive power of the blood holes of order was also smelted at the same time. In the blink of an eye, another hour passed. Absolute return. After an hour, Lin Tian opened his mouth and once again summoned his divine ability of order. With a rumble, he raised his hand. With a simple punch, an unparalleled destructive and corrosive power erupted. This was all of Huang Quan-yi's killing power that had attacked him an hour ago. After being refined by his divine power of order, he returned it with double the power at this moment. The blinding light of the fist pierced through the sky and shattered Huang Quan-yi once again with a poof. Blood splattered all over the sky. Huang Quan-yi only had his soul left. He was shocked and angry. He was at the early stage of the absolute void stage and was one of the 10 great divine children of the Huang Quan clan. But now, he was actually injured to this extent by a human at the peak of the void transformation stage. At this moment, his essence, energy, and spirit had weakened to the lowest point. His soul was full of cracks, and he even lost the ability to reform his body. He was severely injured. What made him even angrier was that it was his own power that had injured him to this extent. Next time, I will definitely suppress you. Lin Tian's order divine ability shocked and enraged him. Not only could it infinitely weaken his order divine ability, but it could also refine all of his offensive power and return it back twice as much. It was simply unfathomable. Now, his order was completely ineffective in front of Lin Tian's order ability. His voice was cold. After he said those words, he turned around and left. In the blink of an eye, he was tens of thousands of feet away. Lin Tianling snorted and took a step forward. In an instant, he stopped the other party, and the reincarnation diagram of the king's territory pressed down mightily. For a moment, the aura of holiness and majesty intertwined, directly enveloping Huang Quan-yi. Break! Huang Quan-yi roared, and the power of order vibrated, trying to shake off the reincarnation diagram. However, it was useless. As Lin Tian comprehended the order to the 5th level, his combat power became even stronger, and Wan Yu naturally became more domineering. Besides, Huang Quan-yi himself was severely injured, and at this moment, he couldn't break the reincarnation diagram at all. Father, you're amazing! In the distance, Ruoxian's eyes lit up. It's really amazing! The Violet Fairy also spoke. Lin Tian didn't need to use the Eye of Destiny. With his cultivation level at the peak of the Void Transformation stage, he fought against the 10th Divine Son of the Great Void stage of the Yellow Spring clan. He didn't even suffer any serious injuries. His battle prowess was really shocking. His order ability is a little terrifying. At times, it might even be stronger than the Eye of Destiny, Jiyu said. Yes. Wui also spoke up to confirm. Not only could it infinitely weaken the order of others, but it could also refine all the offensive power of others and return it twice. At times, this ability might really be stronger than the Eye of Destiny. It was a huge variable. Boom! The saint energy was astonishing. Huang Quan-yi struggled violently under the reincarnation diagram, bursting out balls of dazzling saint light. However, it was useless. The saint light looked dazzling, but in fact, it didn't have much power. it was shattered by Lin Tian's reincarnation diagram in the blink of an eye. Then, the reincarnation diagram shook again and completely suppressed his divine soul. Reincarnation body, let go! Huang Qiuani roared. Lin Tian snorted. The reincarnation god-slaying technique was activated, and an invisible killing power fell directly on Huang Qiuani's divine soul. This killing power targeted the divine soul. It immediately made Huang Qiuani's divine soul tremble violently, and he couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. At this moment, Lin Tian released a strand of divine thought and directly entered Huang Qiuani's divine soul to forcefully search his divine soul. He wanted to know who were the 50% of the Yellow Spring race's fighting force that had entered this universe, and where they had set up camp after they had entered this universe. Moreover, he also wanted to know the general situation of the 9 hells, underworld, and Rakshasa forces that had entered this universe. Get out! Huang Qiuani naturally felt that Lin Tian was searching his divine soul. He immediately roared, and his divine soul trembled, releasing endless soul light. At this moment, his divine soul fiercely rejected Lin Tian's divine thought. Lin Tian snorted and released the reincarnation god-slaying technique again. The invisible killing power fell on Huang Qiuani's divine soul again, causing Huang Qiuani's divine soul to tremble violently, and he couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. The repulsive force against the divine thought of the divine soul that he sacrificed into Huang Qiuani's divine soul weakened countless times, allowing him to successfully search his divine soul. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths passed. After dozens of breaths, his divine thought of the divine soul withdrew from Huang Qiuani's divine soul. Huang Qiuani roared. Human, how dare you! Lin Tian didn't say anything to him. The reincarnation diagram mercilessly pressed down, directly interrupting Huang Qiuani's next words, and directly crushing his divine soul with a poof. After searching Huang Qiuani's divine soul, he learned a lot. In this clan, apart from Huang Qiuani, the 10th divine son, the other 9 divine sons had also come together. They were now searching for something in an ancient relic. The most powerful of them, the first divine son, was at the peak of the Great Void stage. In addition, there were many other people from this clan who had killed their way into this universe. They were led by 10 supreme elders of the Path Fusion realm, and all of them were very terrifying. At the same time, he also found out where the temporary battle camp of the Yellow Spring clan in this universe was. As for the 9 Nether bloodline, the Underworld bloodline, and the Rakshasa bloodline, there were naturally more people who had killed their way into this universe. Like the Yellow Spring clan, each of the major clans also had 10 divine sons. Their combat strength was similar to the 10 divine sons of the Yellow Spring clan, and they had all killed their way into this universe. Moreover, these divine sons of these 3 major clans seemed to know about him. Everyone was now searching for his traces. On the other hand, the strongest experts of these 3 major clans who had killed their way into this universe were also at the Path Fusion realm. However, their numbers were slightly more than that of the Yellow Spring clan. The 3 major clans had roughly 20 Path Fusion realm existences who had killed their way into this universe. He paused for a moment, then simply told this matter to Wu Yi and the others. For a moment, the group was a little solemn. Compared to the great destruction of the Xianhuan universe and the primordial universe, the combat strength of the Celestial Court was much stronger. Chapter 2300. The Celestial Court had invaded the primordial universe and started the great destruction of the primordial universe. Now, this part of the universe was considered the safest place. Even so, he was still worried about some of his friends in the universe. Jiang Luoluo lived on the Eternity Ancient Star and had fought together with Ji Yu and the others. Now that the great destruction was coming, he didn't want anything to happen to that girl. He asked Wu Yi to follow Ji Yu and the others to bring Jiang Luoluo to the 10-directional Ancient Star. In this part of the universe, the 10-directional Ancient Star could be said to be the safest place and the strongest fortress. He was going to the Immortal Region. And Shui Shui, Ning Yeye, and I Yao Yao, and Elder Ge of the Lord Theological Seminary were all in the Immortal Region. They were either his friends or had helped him in the past. Now that the great destruction was coming, he was worried about them. After that, he still had to go to another desolate world. In the past, he had been framed by someone and lost all his cultivation, falling into that desolate world. He had lived in a small village in that world for 10 whole years. He was extremely familiar with the people in that village, and he had taught many people how to cultivate. He did not want those people to suffer in the great devastation. As for Qinlin on the Milky Way imperial planet, he didn't have to worry about her. Under his orders, Yitong and the little fox had already set up dozens of branches of the Celestial Lyceum on the ancient planet. Many powerful immortal generals of the Celestial Lyceum were stationed outside the ancient planet to protect it. Most importantly, he and Wu Yi had worked together to set up a boundless killing array of order. Even an early-stage Tao fusion existence wouldn't be able to do anything to that place. "Be careful," Wu Yi said to him. Lin Tian nodded. "You too. No matter what happens, put your own safety first." He asked Wu Yi and the others to go to the Eternity Ancient Star to pick up Jiang Lulu. He wasn't too worried about their safety. After all, they were all at the Heaven Ascension realm, and the weakest of them had comprehended order to the 3rd stage. They were all very strong. In this great destruction, there weren't many people who could threaten them. In particular, Wu Yi was in the group. With Wu Yi's current strength, even if they encountered an early-stage Tao fusion existence, they could escape unscathed. Wu Yi nodded gently and didn't say anything else. He led Ruoxian and Ji Yu to the Eternity Ancient Star. "Father, be careful!" Ruoxian's voice came from the distance. They disappeared from Lin Tian's vision in the blink of an eye. Lin Tian softly chuckled. He paused for a moment, looked towards the center of this world, and took a step forward. The Celestial Court acted quickly. At this time, a temporary battle palace had been set up in the center of the world. A void sky expert was guarding this place. He arrived at this place and didn't say anything. With a thought, the Samsara sword filled the sky and destroyed the battle palace of the Celestial Court. The void sky expert inside and the nearby celestial soldiers and generals were all killed at the same time. Then, he opened the world portal to the immortal domain and stepped into it. In an instant, he entered the immortal domain. "Kill!" The immortal domain was filled with shouts of killing. Naturally, the cultivators of the Celestial Court had already stepped into this world and were killing mercilessly. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. With a thought, he killed all the celestial soldiers and generals in his sight. Then, he tore open a void portal and arrived at a group of celestial mountains. In the group of celestial mountains, there was a celestial palace. It was the place where the Purple Heaven Treasure sect was established. When he first entered the immortal domain, he stayed in this sect for a period of time. Ning Yeye was in this sect and had protected him. Ah! Screams of terror came from inside. The smell of blood was very strong. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed. He stepped into the Purple Heaven Treasure sect and was stunned by the scene in front of him. Previously, when he heard the screams, he thought it was the Heavenly Court's heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals slaughtering the disciples of the Violet Firmament Treasure sect. He immediately became anxious for Ning Yeye's safety. After all, when Ning Yeye was still very young, she had protected him in the Violet Firmament Treasure sect. For his sake, she didn't hesitate to activate the Violet Firmament Treasure sect's guardian killing formation. He was naturally afraid that Ning Yeye would be in danger during the great calamity. However, when he really stepped into the Purple Heaven Treasure sect, he found that although the celestial soldiers and generals from the Celestial Court had killed their way into the Purple Heaven Treasure sect, the screams he heard just now did not come from the disciples of the Purple Heaven Treasure sect, but from the celestial soldiers and generals from the Celestial Court. The little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile were in this place, killing the celestial soldiers and generals one after another. The celestial soldiers and generals kept exploding. "Eh? Boy Lin, you're here too?" Wishing Crocodile noticed Lin Tian and looked over. "Yeah." Little Alpha Primordium naturally noticed Lin Tian as well. It called out to Lin Tian in its childish voice, and with a flap of its beautiful wings, it shattered a large number of celestial soldiers and celestial generals. When they first entered the celestial domain with Lin Tianyi, they naturally knew about Ning Yeye, and Shui Shui, and Ni Yao Yao. They had even fought alongside in Shui Shui and Ni Yao Yao. When the great calamity of the primordial universe began, they immediately left the 10 Directions ancient star and killed their way into the celestial domain to protect Ning Yeye and the others. They did not expect Lin Tian to come as soon as they stepped into the celestial domain and entered the Purple Heaven Treasure sect. Big brother Lin Tian! She was none other than Ning Yeye. After so many years, her cultivation had become even stronger, and she had become even more beautiful. She had become even more powerful. It's the Celestial Emperor! The Celestial Emperor actually came to help us. There were many disciples in the Purple Heaven Treasure sect. They were all pleasantly surprised to see Lin Tian. Although Lin Tian had withdrawn all the celestial soldiers and generals from the celestial court to the starry sky, he had set up a branch in the celestial domain. All the cultivators in the celestial domain knew about Lin Tian even if they had never seen Lin Tian in person. Lin Tian stepped into the Purple Heaven Treasure sect and saw little Tai Chu, Wishing Crocodile, and Ning Yeye were there. He was relieved to see that Ning Yeye was fine. At the same time, a large sword light appeared beside him and killed all the experts from the celestial court who had attacked the Purple Heaven Treasure sect. Then, he came to the front of the group. Big brother Lin Tian! Ning Yeye immediately went up to greet him with a happy expression. It had been a long time since she last saw Lin Tian. Lin Tian smiled and rubbed Ning Yeye's head. Greetings, Celestial Emperor! There was a woman in a purple dress and an old man beside Ning Yeye. The old man stepped forward and bowed to Lin Tian. Senior, you're too polite. There's no need for that. Lin Tian now straightened the old man's body. He naturally knew this old man. He was Ning Yeye's grandfather, the strongest patriarch of the Purple Heaven Treasure sect. His cultivation had long surpassed the old man's. However, he was still very courteous to the old man. At the same time, he also recognized the woman in purple dress. Her name was Hai Jingyao. She had helped Ning Yeye before and was a friend that Ning Yeye had made in the sea region of the celestial domain. She had followed Ning Yeye back here. It seemed that she had been with Ning Yeye all these years since then. Yeye, you should already know about the great destruction of the celestial court. Now that the great destruction has begun, it's very dangerous. Although it's a pity to abandon this place, we have no choice but to do so now. If you have anything important to pack, pack it immediately. I'll take all of you to another place. Chapter 2301. The location of any sect was extremely important. The Purple Carefree Treasure sect was founded by Ning Yeye's ancestor, so its significance was even more important. However, now that the great calamity was upon them, he had no choice but to ask Ning Yeye to give up on it, no matter how important it was. After all, it was too dangerous to stay here. The celestial court would send people to kill them at any time. He and little Taichu couldn't stay here to protect Ning Yeye and the others. They could only bring them to the 10 Directions ancient star. In his impression, that place could be considered the safest place in the universe. There's nothing to prepare. Let's go. Thank you, brother Lin Tian, for coming to help us. Ning Yeye thanked Lin Tian, little Taichu, and Wishing Crocodile. Then, she looked at the ordinary disciples, deacons, and elders and asked Lin Tian now. Brother Lin Tian, can you take them with you? Hearing Ning Yeye's question, the disciples, deacons, and elders couldn't help but look at Lin Tian. Of course. Lin Tian now. There were more than 10,000 people in the Purple Shao Treasure sect, but this number was nothing to him. Thank you, brother Lin Tian. Ning Yeye thanked him immediately. The disciples, deacons, and elders here were all from the same sect. She didn't want anything to happen to them. Thank you, Immortal Emperor! The disciples, deacons, and elders were also excited. They all bowed to Lin Tian. It's okay. Lin Tian now held up his perfect world and took Ning Yeye and the people of the Purple Shao Treasure sect into it. Ning Yeye and the others didn't have high cultivation. Now, it was the most convenient and safest to take them into the perfect world. Go find Shui Shui and Yao Yao, then go to the Lord Theological Seminary, Lin Tian said to little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile. He directly tore open a void door and stepped inside. After that, he first went to Shui Shui's clan and took Shui Shui and her clan into the perfect world. He then went to Ni Yao Yao's place and took Ni Yao Yao and her sex cultivators into the perfect world. After that, he tore open the space portal and went to the Lord Theological Seminary. There's no need to care about this old man. This old man was born in this immortal realms and will naturally fight. Even if I die in battle, it's still the best ending for me. Inside the Lord Theological Seminary, there were many celestial soldiers and celestial generals. Lin Tian found Elder Ge, who had helped him before, and wanted to take him away. However, Elder Ge was unwilling. Lin Tian repeatedly hoped that Elder Ge would leave with them, but he shook his head and insisted on staying behind to fight. In the end, Lin Tian didn't insist anymore. He took out a peak-level Divine Master-level precious weapon and gave it to Elder Ge. He also infused it with his own power of order to help Elder Ge defend himself in battle. May your path to immortality be long and prosperous. The path to immortality was a general name for the path of cultivation. Since Elder Ge insisted on staying and fighting for this land and didn't want to leave, he couldn't force him. He hoped that Elder Ge's path of cultivation would never end and flourish forever. In other words, he hoped that Elder Ge would always be alive. As he said this, he bowed slightly to the old man. Such a person would always be worthy of his respect. Immediately, he tore open the world portal and left this place with little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile. Now, he couldn't stay in the immortal realms to fight. He had to find other old friends and protect them. In the blink of an eye, he, little Taichu, and Wishing Crocodile disappeared from the Lord Theological Seminary. Bringing Wishing Crocodile and little Taichu, he passed through the gap between the worlds. Not long after, they entered another great world. As far as the eye could see, this great world was very barren. Compared to the worlds in the immortal realms that had been invaded by the heavenly soldiers and generals of the celestial court, this place could be considered very peaceful. He brought little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile to the village where he had lived for 10 years according to his memory. However, when he arrived here, the village in his memory had completely changed its appearance. The inside was filled with all kinds of spiritual trees and celestial plants, and the spiritual qi was very thick. There were about 1 million families living here, and it could no longer be considered a simple village. It could be considered a huge tribe. It was also at this time that people walked out of the village. There were about 10 people, and their spirits were very strong. Their auras were extraordinary. Lin Tianyi recognized these 10 people at a glance. They were the first group of youths that he had taught cultivation in the small village back then. Because their cultivation had reached the level of golden immortal, these people's appearances hadn't changed much after so many years. At the same time, because he didn't hide after coming to this place, he was quickly seen by the 10 youths. Brother! Brother Tian! At that moment, the 10 youths were all very excited. They all rushed over in unison, their faces full of excitement. Ever since Lin Tian left, they had been working hard to cultivate. They were prepared to become stronger and leave this world to search for Lin Tian. They didn't expect that they would see Lin Tian again in this world. You're stronger than before, Lin Tian said with a smile. Come to think of it, he really hadn't seen these people for a long, long time. Back then, they were simple, they fought to protect the village and the ferocious beasts of this world. They cried because he helped them resist the ferocious beasts. Those things were still fresh in his mind. Now, these youths were all in the profound immortal realm. They were completely incomparable to him now. However, compared to when he left, they were already much, much stronger. He chatted with them briefly, and then he was escorted into the village by 12 people. Then, everyone in the village came out. He recognized many of them as people who used to live in this village, but he didn't know most of them. They were all new faces. Then, he soon found out the reason for the change in the village. The first group of youths in the village who followed him to cultivate gradually changed this world after they became stronger. They brought all the people from other parts of this world here to cultivate together. In addition, the descendants of those people gathered here, so there was a huge village today. This, in fact, reflected the desolation of this world in another way. In the entire world, after so many years, the total population didn't exceed 10 million. In terms of population, even the Milky Way imperial planet, which had suffered a great disaster and had less than 1/10,000th of its peak in the past, had far more people than here. However, he only sighed in his heart. Then, he briefly told the people in the village about the great destruction of the celestial court, and told them the purpose of his trip. He wanted to take them away from this world. "Brother Tian, are you going to fight after this?" "We'll fight with you," a youth said. His name was Erju. His name was very simple. He used to cultivate with Lin Tian. Now, he was the most powerful person in this world, at the peak of the profound immortal realm. Moreover, under his leadership, all of the people in this world were cultivators, all of their essence, energy, and spirit extremely powerful. "Okay," Lin Tianwei replied with a smile. Now, they were still very far away from his level. Their cultivation wasn't very strong, but they could still do their best for the great destruction. Bring them back to the 10 Directions ancient planet. There were many immortal books and spiritual treasures there, and they could quickly become stronger. At least they could participate in the battle in the starry sky with the other immortal soldiers and immortal generals. He said a few more things to them. He supported the perfect world and took in all the people in the village. After that, he took the little Taichu and wishing crocodile to a large mountain range not far from the village. Chapter 2302. These are the souls of the creatures that were killed by mistake because of Lan Tianjin and the other bastard's trap. Wishing crocodile looked at the nameless tombs and didn't finish his sentence. Lin Tian nodded and didn't say anything else. Back then, he was framed by Lan Tianjin, Yin Shang, and Yuan Yinfu, and accidentally killed 180,000 innocent creatures. His state of mind was damaged, causing him to fail his tribulation and lose his cultivation. He was stranded in this place, and he had always felt guilty toward those 180,000 creatures. Although he had been framed and killed by mistake, those 180,000 ordinary people had still died in his hands. He always remembered that when he was stranded in this place, and he set up 180,000 small tombs for those people. Because he didn't know the names of those people, the tombs and tombstones here didn't have the names of the tomb owners. After so many years, he came here again. Looking at the 180,000 tombs he had set up here with his bare hands, and the surroundings were very clean, without any weeds, he knew that the villagers had been taking care of this place. The reason for that was because when he left this world, he had asked the villagers to help him guard these tombs. He stood here, paused, and took a deep breath. Using his great ability, he moved the hundreds of thousands of nameless tombs together with the soil layer and put them into his perfect world. When the great apocalypse began, this barren world might be destroyed, and he didn't want these tombs to be destroyed. These nameless tombs were his repentance for the people he killed back then, and he couldn't let them be destroyed. "Let's go." After moving all the nameless tombs and the soil layer into his perfect world, he called out to little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile, and directly tore open the world portal here and left this world. After leaving this great world, he didn't immediately take Ning Yeye and Shui Shui and the others back to the 10 Directions ancient star. Instead, he took little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile to another great world. "What are we doing here?" Wishing Crocodile looked a little confused. "Yeah?" Little Taichu was also curious. As far as the eye could see, this world was even more barren than the world that Lin Tian had brought them to. The entire world was almost completely barren, and not a single green plant could be seen. "Find someone." Lin Tian now. Previously, when he was searching for Huang Quan Yi's divine soul, he found out the location of the Huang Quan clan's temporary camp in this universe. At the same time, he also found the traces of the other 9 divine princes. The 9 of them discovered an extremely extraordinary ancient ruin. For the time being, they all stayed in that ancient ruin and excavated it. And that ancient relic was within this world. He briefly explained the matter to Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile. You came to kill them? Wishing Crocodile glared at him. Could it be that he's here to have tea with them? Lin Tian now. The 10 deities of the Yellow Spring Clan were all very important to the Yellow Spring Clan. He had already killed one of the 10 deities. Since he knew the whereabouts of the other 9 deities, he naturally had to kill them too. At the same time, he was more or less interested in that ancient ruin. After all, among the other 9 deities of the Yellow Spring Clan, the strongest was at the peak of the Great Void stage. An ancient ruin that could attract the attention of people at this level would definitely not be ordinary. Perhaps there would be shocking gains. How strong are those few people? Wishing Crocodile asked again. The strongest is at the peak of the Great Void stage, and the weakest is at the early stage of the Great Void stage. They've all reached the 5th stage of the Great Void stage, Lin Tian said casually. Wishing Crocodile couldn't help but stare at him. The strongest is at the peak of the Great Void stage. They've all reached the 5th stage of the Great Void stage? Can you do it? Hearing Lin Tian's words, it was a little scared. Among the 9 of them, the weakest was at the early stage of the Great Void stage, and the strongest was at the peak of the Great Void stage. Moreover, all of them had reached the 5th stage of the Great Void stage. It was hard to imagine how terrifying their combined combat power would be. Even though it knew that Lin Tian had the Eye of Destiny, it couldn't help but worry. After all, Lin Tian's cultivation was only at the Void transformation stage. Don't worry. Lin Tian now said nothing. He didn't say much. Bringing Lil Taichu and Wishing Crocodile with him, he directly tore open a void portal. Not long after, he appeared in another location in this world. Looking ahead, there was a group of mountains. The mountains were connected to each other, and they were all very majestic. However, the mountains were bare. There wasn't a single green plant, not even a single blade of grass. He brought Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile here and directly walked into the mountains. The ancient ruin was in this group of mountains. After arriving here, he walked into the mountains. His speed wasn't fast, but it wasn't slow either. Soon, he had crossed a long distance. A full quarter of an hour passed. After a quarter of an hour, he also came to the center of the mountains. Looking ahead, there were dozens of mountains connected together. Every mountain was densely packed with ancient runes. It looked like they had been carved with sword chi. There were 9 young people in front. Each of them had an intimidating aura. They stared at the densely packed runes and were preparing to sit down cross-legged. It looked like they had been deciphering something along the way and had just stepped into this place. This is... Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. These 9 young people were the other 9 deities of the Yellow Spring Clan, excluding Huang Quan-Yi. Because he had searched Huang Quan-Yi's spirit, he naturally recognized the 9 of them at a glance. However, at this time, he temporarily ignored the 9 of them. His gaze fell on the densely packed runes and ancient runes. These runes and ancient runes were so complicated that it was difficult for him to understand them at first glance. However, although he couldn't understand them at first glance, he felt that these runes and ancient runes were amazing. They seemed to contain some kind of shocking sacred aura. Beside him, Little Taichu and Wishing Crocodile also saw these runes and were shocked by them. At the same time, the 9 deities of the Yellow Spring Clan in front of them naturally noticed the arrival of the man and 2 beasts. They immediately turned their heads to look. Then, their eyes narrowed. Reincarnation body! One of them spoke. 2 rays of cold light shot out from his eyes, directly shattering a large area of the void in front of him. This person wore a purple robe. His name was Huang Quan-Yi, the first deity of the Yellow Spring Clan. His cultivation was at the peak of the Great Void stage. Beside him, the eyes of the other 8 people also emitted a cold light. Like Huang Quan-Yi, they were also deities of the Yellow Spring Clan. Their status in the Yellow Spring Clan wasn't low, so they naturally knew Lin Tian. At this time, Lin Tian's gaze moved away from the runes and ancient runes on the dozens of mountains and fell on the 9 people. "Step back," he said to Little Taichu and White Tiger. Then, he directly moved. A large area of reincarnation sword radiance appeared and turned into a rain of swords that slashed down, enveloping the 9 deities of the Yellow Spring Clan. The 9 deities of the Yellow Spring Clan all had cold eyes. The 9th deity, Huang Quan Yu, said coldly, "Arrogant thing. You're only at the transformation void stage. How dare you, Buzz!" Lux surged and appeared beside him, interrupting his words. Chapter 2303. The crack appeared too suddenly, and Huang Chuanyu was sucked into it before he could react. "No!" Miserable cries rang out from within, and they were mixed with shrill, terrified, and despair. In the next moment, silence ensued. The crack closed and disappeared in the blink of an eye. "Ninth brother!" The other 8 divine princes of the Yellow Spring Clan were shocked and angry. At the same time, Wishing Crocodile and Little Taichu were shocked and couldn't help but open their eyes wide. He was at the early stage of the Great Void stage and had control over the order, but he was killed by that kid in an instant. Wishing Crocodile couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Even though he had seen how terrifying Lin Tian's Eye of Destiny was and how Lin Tian killed the 72 winged experts of the Heaven Protector clan with his Eye of Destiny, and those people were also at the early stage of the Great Void stage, he couldn't help but be shocked by this scene. After all, although they were both at the early stage of the Great Void stage, this divine prince of the Yellow Spring Clan was definitely not comparable to those 72 winged experts of the Heaven Protector clan. The difference between the two was too big. "Reincarnation body! You are very good! The Eye of Destiny is very good!" The first divine prince of the Yellow Spring Clan spoke. His eyes were extremely cold, and the light of order outside his body began to boil like a vast ocean. The other 7 divine princes of the Yellow Spring Clan had even colder eyes, mixed with anger and killing intent. One of them was killed by Lin Tianyi in an instant, killed by Lin Tian, who was an entire realm apart. Lin Tian opened his Eye of Destiny. Boundless providence revolved around him, circling around his body. "The first divine prince, Huang Quan and I, second divine prince, Huang Quan Fu, third divine prince, Huang Quan Gong, fourth divine prince, Huang Quan Pu, fifth divine prince, Huang Quan Yin, sixth divine prince, Huang Quan Tong, seventh divine prince, Huang Quan Shui, and eighth divine prince, Huang Quan Ling." He looked at the 8 people, appearing indifferent and calm. "All of you attack together." As for the names of the 10 godchildren of the Yellow Springs clan, he had long since learned from a void transformation stage expert of the Yellow Springs clan. At this time, he was naturally able to call out their names. Then, he moved again. His chi of fate moved with the light in his eyes. Vortexes of fate appeared one after another. His chi of fate surged violently. "You are courting death," Huang Quanling said coldly. She knew how powerful the Eye of Destiny was at this time, so she directly propped up the order of the 5th stage. All the ice and snow that filled the sky immediately appeared, completely condensed by order. In the blink of an eye, all the space within a radius of 10,000 feet was frozen. In this place, the temperature of the air dropped by dozens of degrees in an instant. At the same time, the other divine princes of the Yellow Spring Clan had cold eyes, and they all moved together, propping up the order of the 5th stage. The sea of fire, the sky full of light blades, and the dense lightning balls were all very terrifying. Especially the first Son of God reversed the Netherworld's order divine power. Behind him, 18 layers of stone doors appeared. Each layer of stone doors was engraved with dense Tao patterns, as if each layer of stone doors represented a layer of hell. The aura emitted from within was extremely frightening. It was as if once the stone doors were opened, they would devour everything. "These monsters!" "Yeah!" Not far away, the Wishing Crocodile and the Little Taichu could not help but shrink their necks. They were shocked by the divine princes of the Yellow Spring Clan's divine ability of order. It was really too terrifying. Even though Lin Tian had opened his eye of destiny, he still felt immense pressure as he faced the 8 people's orderly mystiques together. After all, his cultivation was much weaker than these people. Furthermore, these people were all super geniuses. This was especially so for Ni Huangquan. His bloodline power was extremely shocking, and he was at the peak of the Great Void stage. He was truly one realm higher than Lin Tian. Furthermore, the 18 stone doors that he held up also gave off a huge sense of threat. Even so, his expression did not change. Instead, his battle aura became even more powerful. He didn't say much. Boundless power of providence moved with his gaze, and vortexes of providence instantly spread out in all directions. Luck surpassed order. He did not use these vortexes of luck to resist the order of the 8 people. Instead, he went around the 8 people's divine ability of order and attacked their bodies. At the same time, strands of saint runes of order appeared outside his body, and they surrounded his body together with the reincarnation divine territory. The 8 people's divine ability of order landed outside his body, and it was infinitely weakened by the saint runes of order. It was blocked by the reincarnation divine territory and disappeared one by one. Not far away, the wishing crocodile and the little Taichu could not help but be shocked when they saw the saint runes of order outside Lin Tian's body. This is the 5th stage of order? This kid has already cultivated order to the peak level? The wishing crocodile's eyes widened. How long had it been since Lin Tian started to comprehend order until now? He had cultivated order to the peak level. In terms of time spent cultivating order, this was even less than the time spent by Wu Yi. Moreover, it was much less. At the same time, Ni Quan and the others also sensed the dense aura of order from the saint runes of order outside Lin Tian's body. The 5th stage of order. This is your divine ability of order that can infinitely weaken other people's divine ability of order? Ni Quan's eyes were cold. He naturally sensed that when the divine ability of order that he and the others used came into contact with the saint runes of order outside Lin Tian's body, it instantly became much weaker. It was actually unable to injure Lin Tian, who was at the peak of the void transformation stage. At the same time, the other divine princes of the Yellow Spring clan also sensed this. The divine ability of order that we have used is less than 1/10. There's no need to be polite with him. Just use it, said the 8th divine prince, Huang Quanling. The divine ability of order outside her body suddenly began to surge. It was also at this time that Lin Tian's voice rang out. Before this, did you completely ignore my attack? As his words fell, the divine ability of heaven and earth fell in front of the 8 divine princes of the Yellow Spring clan, causing them to immediately take action. They began to use their divine ability of order to deal with this divine ability of order. At the same time, as his gaze swept past, a long river of divine ability appeared behind Huang Quanling. The long river of divine ability of heaven and earth was vast and boundless. It directly pressed down and sucked Huang Quanling into it. Damn it! Give me! Ah! A miserable scream came from the long river of divine ability, interrupting Huang Quanling's words. It directly crushed her into pieces, and even her divine ability collapsed within it. 8th brother. Ni Quan and the others were dealing with the boundless divine ability of heaven and earth that Lin Tian had used. Seeing this scene, they were all even more shocked and furious. How long had it been? Among them, another one had been killed by Lin Tian. Reincarnation body. The 5th divine prince, Huang Quanin, roared. The divine ability of order swept across the sky. With the peak of stage 5 order, he shook off the divine ability of heaven and earth outside his body. The surging divine ability of order fell on Lin Tian one after another. The other divine princes of the Yellow Spring clan also shook off the divine ability of heaven and earth that was pressing down on them. At the same time, they used their divine ability of order even more powerful. They pressed down on Lin Tian mightily, and their auras became even more powerful and terrifying than before. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.